And the date is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. Commissioner Franklin is currently absent. Nobody is virtual, right? No.
We have,
Kalina is absent as well.
Buzz.
Oh, and Buzz, that's not on here. I will now open the meeting and take roll call. Dot?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan is a yes. All right, please note, we are doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during a public hearing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom and you will be assigned a speaking time. If you are listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded by the local scene and a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they are able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. Okay. Kingston's Open Space Committee is still seeking a new member. The committee assists conservation in overseeing the management and use of conservation properties to help all of us better access and utilize these resources in a positive way. This is an opportunity for a resident to assist in implementing the town's open space plan, help improve parking and trails, and identify future conservation and passive recreation properties in town, among other benefits. You may inquire by calling the Conservation Department, 781-585-0537, or by emailing Juliana Denham at jdenum@kingstonmass.gov.
ma.gov.
kingstonma.gov. All right, will the agent brief us on what needs to be signed?
We have an invoice from Bonomi Welding, partial invoice for the footbridge work at Blackwater Memorial Forest, which will be open again hopefully very soon. Apologies for the extended delay to all of the people who are concerned about that. And we have Beals and Thomas for engineering services for the Sampsons Brook restoration project. And we have an invoice from Archaeological Consulting Services for survey at Lake Street Culvert.
Did we already sign all those?
Yes.
Okay. We have no action items, correct?
I think you just read through that.
All right.
One.
I will now open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability, RDA, for 2 Wildwood Circle. The applicant has requested to withdraw the filing. Do I hear a motion either way? Are we going to talk about this?
I think it just makes sense to have a motion to accept their withdrawal, just so it's recorded and done.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right, made by Dot, seconded by Brian. I will take a vote. Dot?
Yes.
Nope. Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And Megan is a yes. So we have accepted that. I will now reopen a public meeting to discuss the request for amendment or deviation for 126 and 131 to 137 Ring Road, submitted by Beals and Thomas on behalf of Ring Road Solar LLC. Do I have to read the file numbers? File number SE 0370889 and 0890, sorry. The applicant did not provide updated materials by the submission deadline, therefore this meeting should be continued to July 23rd, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
Motion for continuance.
Second.
Okay. Brian, Marilyn, that's been continued. Oh wait, we'll vote. Dot?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan is a yes. That is continued. So now we move to enforcement.
Yep.
164 Pembroke.
Do you want to stay or?
I thought it wasn't going to be discussed.
That's not on.
I'm basically going to say that, you know, the property owner called and said that they were going to have legal representation here tonight, and their legal representative let them know he could not make tonight's meeting. So he called me yesterday requesting continuance. So I can basically bring that to the commission. I mean, my recommendation, of course, would be to continue for 2 weeks to July 23rd so that he can have representation here to continue the conversation, but that's always up to the commission.
We can't really discuss much without them being there, correct?
It doesn't make sense to.
Yeah. So motion for continuance.
Second. Okay, is that 2 weeks?
Yes, July 23rd.
Okay, we will vote. Can we even do that with 3 of us?
You better recuse
It's an interesting,
It is an
They're not
interesting.
voting yet. When they vote, I'll recuse myself.
I don't think you need
Yeah,
to
but we can't vote without a quorum.
I understand that. That's what I was explaining to Dot.
right.
I love this.
I don't know that it matters one way or the other, honestly, with enforcement.
Whether the quorum matters?
Yeah, or the vote. I mean, one way or the other, it's going to be discussed at the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't think, well, hey, look, Jim's here.
Okay.
Just, I guess, call him in for the record and then,
All right, let
I
the
can-
record show that Jim Franklin has shown up at 6:39 PM.
so if you want for vote purposes, I can just kind of repeat what I just said and then we have a quorum.
Sure.
We're talking enforcement, 164 Pembroke Street. I received a call yesterday from the property owner saying he was planning on having counsel present tonight and that his counsel could not be present tonight, so he was requesting continuance. And I think that makes the most sense to continue it 2 weeks so that he can have representation here. We're not discussing it without anybody present. So we had a,
This is the one that we've
Hmm?
continued a few times, right?
yeah,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
What if we continue it 2 weeks again, and then there's another reason in 2 weeks? Like, can we not continue it in 2 weeks? Because now this has been continued and continued.
Right.
So I want to make sure, one, this is being addressed. Two, the work is whatever, we can't get into it, but,
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because it was essentially, it was a distinct event, but it's one that potentially continues on with further lawn applications. So, I mean, at some point, if the commission doesn't want to continue it anymore, they can just make a decision on an action. But we can, I guess, I would say get there when we get there. For now, I don't see a huge amount of downside in continuing 2 weeks and having the conversation with their counsel.
If I may,
yeah?
I have,
Is your mic on?
No.
sorry. I think I'm feeling the same way that you are on this, that, it's been continued and there's been no action and there's been no, as far as I know, no response, other than we need to push, we need to push, we need to push. So if we are going to entertain pushing again, I think it comes with a statement that, as far as I'm concerned, we're going in 2 weeks.
Right.
Hella high water. We'll get to the end of it one way or another. I don't think these things are meant to be just open-ended where they
Right.
just get resolved at the pleasure. It's something that we're here to do a job. It's come to our attention that there's problems. We're not supposed to just keep pushing and pushing. So I'm fine with moving it again, but I think there has to be an understanding moving forward from my perspective that we're moving forward.
I can certainly let them know that the commission said they'll continue it to the 23rd, but on the 23rd, it will be discussed regardless of attendance. I mean, that's honestly the way we
Right.
do notices of violation, right? We send a notice of violation out, we say it's going to be discussed at this conservation meeting. You may want to be there to speak to this. If they don't show up, you still issue an enforcement order or fine or whatever it is that you would be doing. So you could treat it the same way.
Do we have,
And to that end, I'm perfectly fine moving in that direction if we decide that there's not an engagement in a meaningful way, that it's time to start enforcing. So I don't know if you guys have discussed that or not, but I'm there.
we just,
Okay.
yeah. Does anyone else have any?
Sounds good.
No, my only concern is if someone's requested a lawyer, we can't really move forward until they have an opportunity to have legal representation, so I agree with you.
This isn't a
but
court. It's a-
I understand that, but in principle, I'd be concerned about that.
In principle, the applicant needs to be here. If
Right.
he chooses to bring a representative, we're giving him the extra time, but we've also
Right.
given him time and time and time, I think, at this point. So that's where I'm coming from on that one.
So I'll make a motion for continuance, understanding this will be the final continuance for this enforcement item.
I'll second.
Great. We will vote on that. Brian and then Jim second. Dot?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Megan is a yes. You want to take over now for the rest?
Sure, do you have the?
Right, well, we're at 44 rather.
Okay, we got 3 minutes till we can open, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Is there anything that just takes 2 minutes on this map that you want
You do minutes.
to blast out? You want to do minutes?
If you wanted to go out of order, Pilgrim John Howland Society is likely to be quicker, I would think, but you could just
Yeah,
jump
let's do
into
it.
44 Rabbit. It's up to you.
Howland.
Howland's? Okay.
Yeah.
Call it up.
Hang on one sec. Find my glasses on that. Point to it, babe. Where is it on here?
Sorry. It's hearings. Just getting more to it.
All right, so we're going to move to enforcement, Pilgrim John Howland Society. Does the agent have a briefing?
Sure. And this was one that we continued from having to cancel the meeting, but this was an RDA from several months ago. Pilgrim John Howland Society, the nonprofit, wanting to do landscape work to make the historical aspects of the site more identifiable and more user-friendly. And early June, I was in the area while there was a tree company there doing work, and I happened to stop by a little bit later when the tree company had left for a little while and noticed that the clearing had gone straight to the wetland line and potentially beyond the wetland line a little bit. This was the project where when it was permitted, essentially the layout was modified so that there would be no landscaping within the 30-foot buffer. If you recall, that was, sort of a change, pulling the pathways back so that there wouldn't be any modifications within that 30-foot no landscaping buffer, so that there wouldn't be need for a waiver. And then they cut right up to the wetland line. So I spoke with Eldon, who was the representative on this, and he said that they had instructed him to stop, and he didn't stop. He cut right to the line. Since then, Eldon has gone out and marked the 30-foot boundary, but here we are. The commission can handle it kind of however they want. Conservation posts wouldn't be a bad idea in a situation like this, to ensure going forward that no matter who's in charge of the property, that, when you have somebody come in there to do work, it's understood that you're not doing anything beyond that point.
And just, from that area and the filings that we've had previously, there's some other, aside for just the wetlands, there's some other resource areas adjacent. Are we near the salt marsh?
No, pretty far from that stuff. The
So just
wetlands in
regular-
this portion of Howlands are higher up than they are in some of the other portions.
Just BBW.
Yeah.
All right. We'll open it up for discussion. The public? All right, move it to the commissioners if there's any discussion. You may.
Yep.
Please state your name and your address for the record.
Make sure there's a little green light on there. Gotcha.
Selden Gay, I live in Wales, member.
Oh, sorry, I guess you shut it off. Press the
Sorry.
button again. Is the green light on now?
Yeah,
Perfect.
All right, so one more time from the top, please.
so just to give you a little background, some of the dead cedar trees were across the.
Sorry, we need your name and your address.
Oh, okay. This is Eldon Gay from Millis, Massachusetts,
Okay.
and I'm a member of the John Howland Society, and I'm the caretaker for that area. We had some of the dead cedar trees were across the line, the 30-foot line from the wet line. And the contractor, when he was pulling the trees, and the briars and the vines came with him that were on the area of the 30, beyond the 30-foot line. So we removed the trees and the briars and vines by hand in that area and cleaned it up so that it should be able to grow back to its natural state. We also, once the briars and the undergrowth was removed, were able to stake out the 30-foot line clearly with stakes so that when we resawed the area, we wouldn't go past the 40-foot line.
All right,
Okay.
does anyone have any questions for you?
Any questions?
Well, I'm
Alan,
just
sir.
curious if we're going to look at the thought of conservation posts.
Yeah, so if there's anybody else from the public want to be heard? All right. If you're all set, we're just going to discuss. All right, so we'll just open it up for discussion. What's the feeling on the recommendations by the agent?
We didn't have posts in the original.
I don't believe so, no, it was just, they pulled any work out of the 30-foot. I don't recall that we had posts in
Yeah.
there, I can double check.
Me neither. I would definitely suggest conservation posts along the 30. Wasn't there
Was it a 40 recommendation?
a fence or?
What was your recommendation on the line?
I mean, I would say the 30-foot, what was approved was up to the 30-foot as far as their maintenance. It just seems like the contractor went too far. It's like the masticator, just kind of chewed everything up.
Everybody in agreement that that's the way we want to proceed? All right, Matt, do you have a recommendation on spacing?
We typically do every 50 feet.
Do you
Would
have
that
a-
be sufficient?
Do you have a plot plan you want to throw up there, or?
I'm gonna pull that up right now, just the
I don't see it in my
RDA,
notes.
the RDA plan.
I don't see it in my notes that we asked for conservation posts. We did ask for a placard describing the importance of keeping out of the wetlands on the kiosk. Other than that, we didn't.
Sorry, this takes longer for some reason than it should. Can't see what any of the files are. Here we go. All right, I can put this up on the screen in a second. All right, that took way longer than it should have. So this was the plan as approved. You can see the green line is the 30-foot buffer, and they pulled all of the work out of that area. Initially, they had this pathway going through here to get to this well here. So you have this whole area you could do. Oh, scale's kind of funny on this, but using that 30-foot line and pulling it across, you could see you'd have about, I would say, 3 to 4 posts across the back. You could ask for 1 post along each of those, ends near the wall, and then 2 or 3 in between. You could say 5 posts spread across evenly, something along those lines.
So go ahead, so.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we have the applicant add conservation posts, 5 of them.
Marilyn or Jamaica?
Your mic's off.
Oh, Mike. Sorry. Okay. I move that we have the applicant add conservation posts to the area, 1 on each end and 3 in the middle, for a total of 5.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And this is in lieu of fine?
Sure.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to require a total of 5 conservation posts. As noted, we'll take a voice vote.
In perpetuity is like
Can
the
you
understood.
maintain in perpetuity
Yeah.
with the standard language? Okay. We'll take a voice vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jim's a yes. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
When a pesticide applicator has to learn about wetlands to get his license,
Mhm.
is there anything like that for tree people, tree cutters?
No.
No.
Can we fine the tree cutters for doing this?
Yes. But they can also, just like anybody else, they can appeal it. And last time we did that, it went to the magistrate, and the magistrate, for some strange reason, waived the fine, even though it was a very egregious case. But
It's just not right.
I think, yeah. It's not often, I think, easy for them to tell. In this case, I think the lack of clear marcation of the 30-foot buffer was the problem. So therefore, I think if we do it this way, we've answered that problem going forward.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, I think it's more problematic for the tree cutters because there's no licenses required, whereas the
Can you imagine
applicators need to be EPA licensed.
with that equipment? Surely there'd be something.
Yeah.
It's
There's
tough as-
more training than, I don't think there's any exams that I know that, are by the state.
Okay.
Whereas like a contractor has to go through and pass his construction supervisor's license, there's lots of things that affect other people, but when it comes to landscaping and such,
But again, for this particular site, I don't believe it was staked all across that 30-foot.
No.
No, there were
Was it?
wetland
So-
flags at the edge of BVW, and that was about it. So,
Okay.
all right, moving on. All right, time is now 6:55. We're doing Shore Drive first, right?
yep.
Okay. Now reopen a hearing for a notice of intent for the proposed construction of a garage addition within the buffer zones to several coastal wetland resource areas. This is Section A, 54 Shore Drive, notice of intent for proposed construction of a garage addition within the buffer zones of several coastal wetland resource areas. If the applicant is present, please come forward and present your information.
Just clarification, we haven't heard this before, right? This is the first?
We have not.
Okay, sorry, it just said reopen, so I wanted to make sure we were missing something.
So we're going to open. All right, please identify yourself and.
I'm Paul Seberg from Grady Consulting, here along with the owners, the Bakers. I don't know if you want to pull up the plan. Yeah.
You got it. You can just talk while I struggle through this again.
Do you want me to go ahead and just start
Please.
describing the project?
Please.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, so this site currently consists of a single-family dwelling. There's a gravel driveway in the front of the property, as well as a shed. And then there's a patio and gazebo located in the rear of the property. The resource areas for the site consist of salt marsh, there's a coastal bank, and also land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicant is proposing to construct a 38.5-foot by 29-foot garage addition along to the front of the existing house. The proposed garage is located 30.2 feet from the coastal bank resource area, 33.7 feet from land subject to coastal storm flowage, and 52 feet from the salt marsh resource area. The proposed addition is no closer to the resource areas than the existing structure is. A variance has been requested to allow for the wall-type foundation to be within 50 feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage and the coastal bank resource areas, which are shown there in blue. And the proposed addition is shown in that light tan color towards the front of the house there. This site currently consists of 2,393 square feet of impervious area, or 18.7% within the buffer zone, which exceeds the 15% requirement. There's no known existing stormwater management for the site currently. The project proposes to increase the impervious coverage by 1,144 square feet with the proposed addition, which would be 27.6% coverage within the buffer zone. We've requested a variance for the increase in impervious coverage greater than 15%. The project proposes a stormwater infiltration system to retain and infiltrate the stormwater runoff from a portion of the existing home, which would be 899 square feet of the existing roof, and the proposed addition, which is 1,144 square feet, which is designed for a 5-inch rainfall event. And that stormwater management system is located in light gray color towards the front of the property there, just within the 100-foot buffer zone. With the proposed stormwater mitigation for the existing house and the proposed addition, the remaining untreated impervious coverage would be decreased to 1,494 square feet, or 11.6% within the buffer zone, which is less than the 18.7 existing and 15% requirement. In addition, we are proposing 548 square feet of native mitigation plantings along the northwesterly property line, shown in light green there. There's a silt sock erosion control barrier, shown in red between the proposed work and resource areas, kind of along the top of the bank there. In addition, we are proposing 4 conservation posts, shown as those red squares along the mitigation plantings. And that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
All right, thank you for that information. We'll let you know if we have any further questions requiring a response. Matthew, do you have an update on your staff report? Can you walk us through?
Yeah, I'll try not to repeat too much of what he just said. This is another one of those Rocky Nook projects where we're already over the impervious coverage percentage and making it higher, but mitigating some of that with stormwater infiltration. I haven't kind of questioned this necessarily yet, but I wonder whether there were any test pits or anything done to confirm that this system could be built to the specs that are called for, just because I wonder what's going to happen on one of these when they go to dig it and realize that they can't if the test pits haven't been done, because at that point the project's not going forward. Commission's not likely to issue an amendment on something like that. So that's just a question.
The question is, have you done test pits on site to confirm that this?
No, we haven't. It hasn't been a requirement from the commission on the previous projects that we've dealt with. We've used the NRCS web soil survey, which is consistent with the past approvals that the commission has issued.
All right. Have you done any subsurface soil excavation there that you could?
No, not at this site.
Nearby? Anything you can offer as an engineer?
Yeah, unfortunately not yet, no.
And again, that's not something that I'm asking from specifically from a regulatory standpoint, but the commission could always question these things, especially where we're talking about these systems handling certain flow rates and having a certain size to them. And I think, it's a gamble on Rocky Nook, as you can see kind of where the ledge comes out on the coastal bank there, that there eventually could be a problem with one of these, but really what that comes down to is it's not going to be buildable. So it's really, I think, on the applicant if they want to do due diligence like that in advance, because you may issue a permit, and if they can't do the mitigation, then the permit's not going forward. They'd really likely have to refile if they can't figure out a equivalent solution that you guys could approve through an amendment.
I think worst-case scenario, Matt, what we would end up doing is a much shallower system if we hit ledge, maybe a crushed stone trench along the northerly side of the property, or just basically a shallower system with a larger footprint in the event that we ran into ledge.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
If
please.
that were to happen, you would be coming back here? Yes?
That could be a condition of approval.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't even need to be a condition. It's, you can't,
It's
yeah,
not a
you wouldn't be
minor
able just to build a different stormwater system. Otherwise, you definitely wouldn't get a COC that way, but, yeah.
So it sounds like we have a presentation in front of us that offers, kind of a pretty standard response to what we ask for in these locations when they're trading off some detriment to receiving, kind of a benefit. And it's in this case, it sounds like it's not a definite that it can be done, but it's a plan to do something in a meaningful way. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say essentially if they go to do the project and realize they can't dig that, I mean, I would suggest inspecting that before doing the rest of the work, because if you can't do that, then you would at least need to come back for an amendment. It's not, shifting to a different layout and depth of a stormwater system, I don't think is something the commission would be doing as a minor change. It's something that would be an amendment, which is, kind of onerous in itself. But I think, yeah, it's up to the commission. We're seeing more of these now, and there's no way the commission says yes to a project like this without an appropriate level of stormwater infiltration as mitigation. So in any case, if the commission ever does want to see something like that, you can always ask for it, but I think it's sort of buyer beware. It's if they want to get the permit saying they can do that, that's fine. It's just, there's an understanding that if they can't,
Right.
you can't just go forward and like, oops, we already built the garage, don't make us rip it down. Because the commission, I think, won't feel as,
So just
Yeah.
moving forward, it's more of a, sounds like there's a recommendation that this is something that we'd like to know first day when you bring the backhoe on site and start digging. Is that the intent, Matt?
I think it could certainly be conditioned. A project like this, I believe, would also need to move, there was a comment from sewer again, like the one we had on Adams Street about moving the sewer line. I think that was the plan, correct?
Right, we'll have to relocate the sewer line
Yeah.
around the addition. Correct.
So I think it's feasible in this case that you could do the inspection of the soils in the location of the infiltration area first to make sure that that could happen before you
Right.
go
Yeah,
down
we can do that.
too much else. Yeah, so I think if this was approved, you could certainly condition that be something that's done first. There is, sorry, let me just write something down quick. There's, and again, similar to the last one we did here on Adams Ave, there's a issue with a little bit different in this case, some unpermitted work from a previous owner. In this property, you have a concrete patio here at the top of Coastal Bank with, sort of a retaining wall on either side of it, I believe also made out of concrete. All within the velocity zone. There's a gazebo that's been there for a long time. I mean, that's been there probably since at least 2003. It shows up on an RDA plan from 2003. That one's partially in the velocity zone. I would say more concerning is that concrete patio, that top of Coastal Bank area with that retaining wall. Certainly is not something that the commission would approve. It's not best practice for, protecting property from waves or protecting wetland resource areas from waves. So that may be something that's concerning to the commission. There's no evidence that any of that was permitted. Again, they are from a prior owner of the property. It appears that patio shows up between 2008 and 2010. So I certainly didn't want to just skip past that and not mention that, and I believe we have photos of that as well that we've shared. Already mentioned the sewer portion. We did receive comments from the sewer department on that, so they'll want, obviously, to be tied in on any of that work.
You mentioned something about trees within jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think the property owner mentioned at the site visit that they wanted to remove a couple of trees, and Juliana, recommended you could wrap that in with the same filing, but it's, to my knowledge, not been added to this filing, so it either would need to be added, or that could be done separately, either through admin review or RDA, depending on, what the trees are and what their condition is and everything like that. I don't know if you want to stop and talk about that, we can.
No, as long as it's addressed.
Yeah. Mitigation plantings, they could help prevent runoff from entering the salt marsh from the left side of the property, but there is no buffer protecting the coastal bank. So again, you have the unpermitted work there right up against the top of coastal bank there. That may be something that needs to be dealt with either through permitting or mitigation, or I'm not sure. That is an issue. Proposed infiltration system is designed to infiltrate runoff from 2,000 square feet of roof for the 10-year storm or a 5-inch rainfall event. Has the plan been updated for which downspouts are going to be connected to that?
Yep, they're all shown on the plan.
Okay.
You can see.
Sorry, you need the microphone for that. I don't think we have the cordless out here. I can use the mouse for you.
So there's one by the AC units that are off the existing house there, right near your mouse.
Right here.
Yeah, right about there. Then close to it on the other side, on the northeasterly side of the existing porch of the existing house.
Okay.
Keep going up to the northeast. You can see that RD dash line that kind of runs through it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that ties in. See that dash line that runs across the middle of the house?
Yes.
The existing house. So that's the portion south of that is the existing house that will be tied into the
Okay.
system.
So basically, the area north of where my mouse is now is the area that's not being tied in.
Exactly.
Okay. So everything from here around is connected.
Exactly.
Okay. We received comment from town planner stating that the plan should include the limit of moderate wave action, which appears to coincide with the limit of the velocity zone at this location. Especially the velocity zone overtops the top of coastal bank near the gazebo and the concrete patio. So that is technically something that should be on plans. We didn't call that out during acceptance, but that is on the FEMA mapping now. And let's see, we have the typical comment about the mass shellfish growing area. This is right in between two different growing areas, one that's still closed to the public for harvest due to contamination, and one that is open for harvest. So every effort to limit runoff and contamination in this area is hugely important. So mitigation is great. Anything you can do to limit chemicals, fertilizers from getting into the bay, great. Obviously the stormwater infiltration is great. Commission needs to determine whether the unpermitted work within jurisdiction should be permitted in retro, removed, or if restoration or mitigation measures are necessary.
Matt, to that point, can I just ask for clarification on exactly
Sure.
how much impervious surface we're talking about with that patio and how that would affect the numbers?
I don't have, is that included in your impervious surface numbers or not?
Yeah, it's included in the calculation for the existing
Okay.
impervious coverage, but I didn't break it out into specific.
Yeah, I could do a
Yeah,
quick
yeah,
measurement
yeah.
off his axis if you want to see that now.
Please, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that about 15 by?
And then the commission should determine whether the proposed mitigation is sufficient enough to warrant approval of the project or issuance of OOCs. The standard should be a cumulative, positive, or neutral situation regarding detrimental effects to the relevant resource areas. And if the commission has any questions on that, I can try to answer, or the applicant can answer. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of these now. We're seeing some high impervious surface numbers. I think the commission at least wants to make sure that these systems are going to do what they're saying it will. I mean, 5 inches of rain in one storm is significant. Getting that in the ground would be definitely a benefit on this property if it works. If it doesn't work, then you're adding more impervious surface and you're adding, you know, more runoff. So I'll let you talk for a minute while I measure impervious surface.
All right, so just so we can make sure we hear everybody, we're gonna open it up to public comment. If anybody from the public wants to be heard on this matter, please step to the podium and we'll come back. All right, I see no hands raised. All right, so now we'll move it to the commissioners. So we're doing a new format, right? We're asking you to remain at the podium. Commissioners that may have some follow-up questions, which you're welcome to answer, but please keep in mind, this is not an open forum or debate. Commissioner's role is to deliberate on your requests within the framework of the local and state regulations. So now we're going to open it up to us, right? And we're going to have our adjudication process. So what's the feeling of the commissioners based on what Matt put forth?
I have a question about that concrete pad.
Which is 334 square feet, roughly.
Pad
Or the
question.
gazebo.
The pad, I did
Just
not
the
measure the
patio?
gazebo yet.
What would be the damage if you were to remove it?
I can't directly answer that question right now. On one hand, more than likely, it was built on top of ledge. On the other side, it is likely holding back soil, I believe lawn. Double check.
Is it surrounded by ledge? Is that your remembrance?
It is on top of ledge, so, you know, here I can,
So as far as impervious surface, you don't get more impervious on ledge.
I can share. All right, so there is your, okay. Concrete area. Here, you have your, you know, essentially wall here on both sides with the, I forget what you call them, bollards. This is all the ledge right here, and the ocean here. So there's your gazebo, here's, you know, lawn area in the backyard. So this area here is your mitigation, so essentially that's protecting runoff from going this way towards the little bit of salt marsh that's there. But on this side, if you were to remove this, they would need to do something to hold the soil in place. And to Jim's point, this may have already been impervious by being natural
Yeah.
ledge.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So this is a tough one, right? Because if it's obviously this close to the bay that it never should have been allowed in the first place. And I'm not really sure where to go, if it's more damage to tear it out than it is to leave it in place. But if it's a retaining wall, there's a good possibility that there was soil brought in on site. And once there's a flooding situation, what happens to that soil? You know, it's a filling, if nothing else, so it's
Right.
a taking. So this is a little bit more complex than what I originally thought it was going to be.
I can offer two things. One is I have gotten away from checking with CZM on every coastal filing we get because I feel like they don't really care to opine on every addition or, you know, thing that doesn't actually involve wave action. But in this case, because this is in the velocity zone, we could reach out to CZM and try to get their input on this and see, you know, is this something that would be more damaging to have somebody remove or modify? Is this something that could be permitted in retro, which I think we sort of know the answer to that already ourselves, but they may be able to provide some guidance on that. Because the other side of it is what you don't want to see happen is more of this. You don't want more unpermitted work on the coastal bank, and you don't want more, you know, modifications like, you know, kind of flat concrete areas and all that. Ideally, what you would have here is you'd have vegetation holding all the soil back on top of what you can get on top of the ledge. Obviously, you're not going to get 8-foot deep natural vegetative roots like you will in some areas, but if you have all the soil there being held by a buffer zone of native plants, then you're holding that a lot better than you are with turf and some concrete.
So how would you feel about extending that mitigation area and having more plants and running it, just extend it and run it along that area? Do you think that would be worth a benefit or not?
It's hard to say. I think it would depend on how wide it is. I mean, I think as it is, the mitigation that's proposed here is not terribly robust because it's a thin lot to begin with, so they only had so much to work with.
So it would be taking away from the lawn?
Yeah, I would say certainly that would be the idea. Yeah, any way you can get lawn away from Kingston Bay, I think there's huge benefit.
Exactly. No, well, that's where I
there.
was
And
going
if
with
you
that.
can keep lawn runoff from getting into Kingston Bay so that, you know, you can condition all day that, you know, people shouldn't use fertilizers and it'll still happen. So I don't know, I think maybe checking with CZM is a good idea.
Okay.
I certainly don't think that the commission needs to make a snap decision on this. You don't have to tie something like that to this permitting. I mean, you are welcome to still issue or not issue a permit based on what's in front of you and deal with the rest of it through enforcement. It's always unfortunate when the enforcement happens when it's someone who didn't actually do the work, but it's an unfortunate part of things, and the law has shown again and again that those things are buyer beware. So I think that, you know, this commission, from my history here, has not ever really tried to beat up on anybody really badly for those situations, but you do want them to be right where there are issues.
Well, I think we're looking for protection, not punishment.
Correct. Yeah, I think the commission's been pretty standard about that, so. Yeah.
All right, it looks like,
I'm Paul
would you like
Baker.
to speak to this specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Please
Paul Baker,
introduce
the owner of
yourself.
54 Shore Drive. You know, with what you're talking about with the water runoff, it's more of the ocean water coming in, because when we have big storms, I lose part of my front yard with that concrete pad there.
And what do you consider your front yard, just so I follow you? Would the street side or the ocean side?
Oh, I'm sorry. I consider this my front yard.
Okay, ocean side.
This should be the backyard, but I lose up almost underneath the gazebo
Yeah,
and
the
so on and
water's
so forth,
probably
with
running up
the
the
ocean coming in,
ledge
hitting in the
and
runoff. There's also a
Overflowing,
geographical marker
survey marker, yeah.
that is cemented into that pad.
Into the concrete pad.
Into
on
the
top.
concrete pad, there's a,
Is it a USGS?
I'm sorry?
USGS?
Yes. So at some point that the US government uses is concreted into the pad.
Surveyors can, I mean,
Yeah.
they can put them whatever they want, wherever they want to.
Anything was probably there before and they incorporated it into the pour.
I don't know, it depends
Or the
on if it was a
liquid.
nav. Do you know what nav, would it be nav?
I would have to
88
look
or-
that up. I wasn't aware of that, but that concrete pad, I believe, is a lot older than 2008. When I was looking at the Google histories, I could, if you pull it up, I think I couldn't find where it wasn't there
You
anymore.
have better software for that than I do.
I think you said 2003, Matt.
In 2003 was the gazebo,
Oh,
showed
I'm
up in
sorry.
a RDA filing in 2000. It wasn't approved by it, but it showed up as though it was already there before 2003. But from what we could see from our very limited grainy imagery, 2008 to 2010 looked like it, but Jim's got the good stuff.
I couldn't find it before. I thought I saw it before that.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
it would make more sense for it to be older
It
than
looks
for it to be
pretty-
that
looks
somebody
pretty
did
old.
that, you know,
Yeah.
within the last 15 years without somebody noticing and reporting it, but.
I think that structure's a lot older than that.
Just while Jim's looking that up, to the applicant's point, I guess that's sort of why the commission and CZM push hard for the best possible solutions at the coastal bank. Because the technology and the ideas have changed a lot in terms of what you should do to protect your property. And they've gotten away from, these revetment situations and sort of hard concrete protection situations. While Jim's looking that up, would you like me to go through potential special conditions on this?
Please.
So we already talked about a couple of them.
Hang tight. Commission, is there anything else we want to speak about directly that pertains to this as it stands in front of us right now, or are we ready to hear from them? We want to discuss more on so we'll come back to the concrete slab. Are we all good with letting Matt proceed with
Yes.
Did we know what type of foundation this is for the garage? Did we go over that?
Excuse me.
Hold on.
My
please.
name is Judy
Hold on,
McAferry.
Hold
Hang
on,
on.
please. Do we know what kind of foundation? Did we clarify? It's like a slab foundation? Is it on piles? Is it on
What kind of, are you,
the
piles?
garage?
A wall-type foundation.
So poured.
It's a garage, so we can have a wall-type foundation for the slab.
Going down to 4 foot,
4 feet.
4 feet. Does that answer your question?
It does. I definitely suggest some test pits before we even go too far, but.
Okay. Ma'am?
Okay, my name is Judy McAferry. I live next door to him, 56 Shore Drive.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
That marker has probably been there since God knows when. We've had the property over 50 years, all right? Those were Army barracks, way, way, way back. That has been changed many
So you're
times.
speaking to the concrete?
Yes, that's
there.
probably, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it's probably been there forever. I mean, the house is built, it's Rocky Nook, okay? There's
No,
very
let's,
little.
let's just keep it very, we're fact-finding, so.
Well, okay,
You have
when it's
more
fact
facts?
find, there's it's all rock. Underneath, you're probably gonna, when he goes to put his garage, he's probably gonna have rock, okay? It's all rock. There's very little soil. If they have houses down the street next to us, they had to blast to put the house in.
Okay.
So it's not going to ruin your ecology or whatever. We've been there forever.
Okay.
All right.
With- Is there more information that you want to provide? Facts,
Facts?
just facts.
No, I'm not sure because I don't know.
All right.
But I
We're-
mean, this is by living and owning property down
Yep.
in that area.
Understood. Thank you. Okay. Matt?
You were looking for me to go?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
The usual, any dumpster should be covered. The usual blurb about outdoor chemicals and fertilizers. 2 years of inspection and reporting on the mitigation area, which should begin the year after project completion. Conservation posts in perpetuity. Detailed allowances for vegetation management. The usual, you can remove volunteer tree species and invasives, but the natives must be allowed to grow densely, not to be mulched as part of maintenance. The area beneath should naturalize. Mitigation planting area should be maintained in a natural state in perpetuity. At no point may it be reduced in size. If at least 75% coverage is not maintained, the commission may require additional planting or seeding. Mulch or any other material must not be added to the areas. Intent is for dense natural vegetation. And that's about what I had, other than what we talked about earlier, which was conditioning test pits first for the infiltration area. I suppose it really would be, you'd want kind of test pits for the whole thing anyways. Like she just said, you're probably gonna hit rock going to dig the foundation. So we have had issues before where the foundation was supposed to be a certain way, it was permitted, then they hit ledge, came back, it took a long time to get the permit modified.
Did I hear you mention no fertilizer or chemical use in the mitigation area, on and on? I know you mentioned it.
Yeah, I sort of just threw the whole property thing in that we've been throwing out
I know,
for
you-
everything else.
that's why I'm being specific.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're welcome to. You mean during planting, I guess, is the,
The mitigation plantings.
yeah. No, I didn't mention that. So no chemicals or fertilizers during the planting of the mitigation area.
Including organic insecticides?
Typically, what we do for these is the homeowner shall limit outdoor chemical use throughout the entire property to organic products and slow-release, low-nitrogen fertilizers due to the amount of the property within commission jurisdiction and the sensitivity of the site and surrounding wetland resource areas. No fertilizer or chemical use is allowed in the mitigation area or the 50-foot buffer to wetland resource areas, including organic insecticides. The homeowner should keep records of any outdoor chemical treatments and provide them to the commission upon request. These include, but are not limited to, invoices from landscape companies, receipts from home improvement or landscape supply stores, and invoices from mosquito control companies. Failure to provide requested records will be cause for the issuance of fines.
Thank you.
That's become our standard coastal blurb.
All right, any discussion based on what Matt's recommendations were?
Were you able to pull up anything on that?
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
get it
I'm
now?
just going to my third source. All right, so I can go back decently to 2002, and based off the site visit photos that you have in there, it looks older than that.
Older than 2002?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is not a 2010 structure. There might have been some modification, but it looks like it's been there for a long, long time. So,
All right, good.
okay.
It's just an imagery issue then.
All right, does the commission have enough to close and consider this, or are we gonna,
Did they want to wrap in the trees or not?
Right,
that's
what
the
I was
question
gonna ask.
really, is
Yeah.
do we want to go to CSM, what is it, Matt? Coastal Zone
CZM.
Management?
I mean, that was more for if it was more recent. I mean,
Okay.
typically the
All right.
commission's not reaching back
Okay, so,
25 years on
yeah.
enforcement, stuff like that, so, yeah.
Based on what I can see, this doesn't look like they did something in the recent history
No.
that, this is something that we should be really digging into. So I'm comfortable with that, and then I think that based off Matt's recommendations, that my inclination is that this is something that we could probably permit if you guys are comfortable with it.
Yeah, along with the conditions that he was very specific about.
Yep, very specific, adopting those, so. If everybody agrees, then we would take a motion to close,
Mhm.
and then hear a motion to take action.
Okay, I'll motion to close the hearing.
I have a comment first, or a question, I'm not sure what it is. If indeed there is ledge just under the soil, and you won't be able to build a 4-foot wall without blasting, that's not allowed. They have to change it.
That would go back, they'd have to come back.
They have to come
Matt, we
back.
don't allow blasting without a major reconsideration, correct?
Don't believe so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a minor modification.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind these trees being in this, so that way we don't have to come back and try to
Mhm.
deal with it.
Yep.
Okay.
As well as, did we ever finalize or go back to Marilyn's point about extending this mitigation to across the coastal bank?
I'm happy speaking about both of those,
Okay.
and
We-
and
If
wrap
we
them all
if
in
we wrap
that's
it
what we
in,
wanna
then
do,
you don't
yeah.
have to come back. and
Right.
It's as good as it's gonna get.
Matt, what's your recommendation on how we bring the tree discussion and requesting it?
I wasn't at the site
Additional
visit, so I don't know if you
mitigation.
want to speak to the tree issue. Is
I
it,
need your help to step in if I need to. I know the one specific.
you want it on the plan or on the imagery?
Actually, this might work actually as well. Maybe just slide it that way. Yeah. So this tree is going to be right on the edge of the driveway. This tree.
That's a spruce, and there's 2 pines that are behind it.
Right here.
So
So basically these,
It's right,
Just to the shed.
just this cluster here.
okay, so,
That's a spruce, and there's 2 pines that are really close together.
so right here you have a cluster of trees that would be
Correct.
removed because they're right where the driveway would be.
Cluster 3 trees? Is that
Yes.
what I heard?
1 spruce and 2 two
Right.
white pines.
Are they a certain size, 8-inch diameter, what,
They're, yeah, about, I think under 12.
Yeah.
under 12? Okay. Matt, do you have any recommendations on how we loop in additional offsets for the trees?
No, I mean, I think typically when we see these, it's called out on the plan. I mean, it makes sense if you have something that's going to be in the way that typically is removed during this process. I mean, it's something the commission can just be okay with. It's something the commission can mitigate.
How do you guys want to proceed with the trees? Do you guys want extra mitigation to offset the
I was
the
gonna
loss of habitat?
suggest extending mitigation around, but I don't know how that's gonna work with the retaining wall, or that concrete wall.
Well, you could wrap it around to it.
Looks like they have it. Do you have an access path that goes down kind of at the
Oh, is that
beginning of the
where it
wall? Right, there's a
What are you
roped,
talking about?
roped area. Where the concrete balustrades stop
Like,
on the inward side
Yep.
of the return on the north side, there looks to be a path perhaps that you guys go down to the rocks.
water?
there. Yeah.
There was concrete stairs there, and they had a patio, like a big patio down there that all just crumbled apart.
Yeah.
So the stairs are there still, but they're blocked off.
Oh, that's what the ropes, it's just blocking off the stairs.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's an active path, that was my only concern, so. Do you have guidance that what you would like to see there? Aaron?
I don't. I would just suggest continuing whatever they have, but I don't. I just lost the picture I was looking at. I don't know how that would work.
yeah, I'm not sure it would be super
Right,
successful based on that
That's
and
this
Right,
ranch
with
over.
the-
exposure to storms.
Right.
Good point.
Having said that, it's not ideal the way it is right now in terms of, site stability and keeping things from being pulled sort of into the ocean, but
Well,
there's not a ton you can do about
Yeah.
that in a minor, mitigation situation.
the applicant has stated that as the water from the storms overruns the structures, it erodes the dirt that's up there. So when somebody says that to me, it's almost like you're asking if there's something that we can recommend that might strengthen. And from everything that we've done here, it's plantings help, natural plantings help to get in there and hold the soil together. So are you interested in including more up towards that area that might help?
I have planted Rosa rugosas and stuff like that throughout the area, so to help.
I'm not a plant guy, so I just look straight to Matt. I don't know if those go down 6 inches or 47 inches, right?
Yeah,
I
they're
just
not,
don't
they're
know.
not the best. You do see them a lot in coastal situations. They're not the best at holding it in place. It's obviously better than turf. In these areas, some of the grasses are really good, little blue stem, things like seaside goldenrod. Some of the stuff that doesn't get super tall. There's also shrubby stuff you could put in there that would be coastal resistant, deep roots.
Are any more salt tolerant than others?
Yeah, yeah. Things like bayberry. Bayberry's a pretty good one in these situations.
Is that something that you'd be looking to wrap it all into this project to take it another 2 weeks, come back and see us and have that written in on the.
What are you
on the
actually
plan.
looking for, something up and along this area here?
Where are you seeing the erosion take place? That's where I would want you to put it. Try to take care of the problem that you're seeing.
Well, when we have the storms, it comes up over the front, but like I said, I have some Rosa rugosa bushes that are yay high, all through here. I've had bricks sitting out here that have wound up here in my yard, so I get washed out here. And this is holding pretty good right now because of the Rosa rugosas that I put in.
I think, as it is, they have the mitigation coming out here, and I believe popping a little bit out this way. I mean, you could wrap it around sort of to the gazebo area. It would certainly have some benefit. It would definitely increase mitigation. It would mitigate the removal of the trees out front. The more robust you go with it, the better it's going to be long-term for the property. You could pocket plant so that you're not exposing a huge area of dirt immediately. You can kind of just do planting smaller plants in small holes in between the grass to try to get it established without losing a bunch of soil in the process.
I'd like to see that wrapped into the project. I don't know how else you all feel.
So that it comes back drawn on it and.
Yeah, add the
defined.
plants,
As well as the
add the
trees.
extended plantings, add the tree removals.
Mark the tree for removal.
Yeah, so give them, maybe we'll continue for 2 weeks,
Sure.
give them a chance to come back and have the revised plans in front of us, and
Yeah.
and we can vote on it then.
That
wall is a little bit higher.
Also, as well as,
Soil?
do we want the conservation post
The rain
extended
runoff doesn't wash that out.
along the mitigation area, because they have it on one side already, or do we not?
I would say typically, if it's going to be mitigation, yeah.
We're going to add the conservation post as well.
Okay. Everybody agree? All right, yep.
So you want to continue to add the mitigation plantings?
Add the yeah.
Could we clarify exactly where you want them? I was just discussing with the owner, and
Yep.
this wall's higher than so it's higher than the existing grade behind us. If we plant in front of this, it's not going to do anything as far as mitigating any runoff from there, because it's going to go directly to the back of the wall.
Matt, I haven't been on site, so I don't.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that still will, does stuff get pulled back this way? You know what I mean?
It's going to just sit and then slowly drain off. But it's not going to go, through the wall, obviously.
I mean, the pictures, they don't look,
I mean, it looks like the image that I'm looking at from the site looks like there's a pitch down towards the wall, and the wall sits up maybe 4 inches. Does that?
We'll share your screen. We'll stop sharing.
I'm not on
this.
this.
Oh, you're not on that.
Yeah. This is your picture.
But it's in
though.
the.
it's in the site photos, yeah.
It's just, the picture is just looking at the stairs that we just discussed with Ms. Baker, right? It's just a 4-inch lip right at that wall right there. I don't know if it gets higher because the land topography changes or whatnot, but from that perspective, that's what it looks like.
How high that wall is from the.
It's about 8 inches.
8 inches.
8 to 10 inches above, yeah.
Along that area. Matt, throw up your pictures, will you?
All right, this is on that side looking towards the ocean on that left side. Looking the opposite way, so the area you're talking about is off to the right. And this is the photo I think you just had
Yeah,
up,
and then
right?
there's, I think, 2 more.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see that planting up against that concrete wouldn't be helpful. I
Okay.
think it still stabilizes the area. Is there a walk down right here in the middle?
Those are there used to be a concrete structure down below, and the stairs are still there, but the structure sounds like it washed away.
That's
This is
not-
what you were talking about earlier
Oh.
with the
Yeah.
ropes. Yeah, because it does also look like it runs down that way a
Right,
little bit
right.
too.
It looks like it slopes down towards the steps. And then next picture.
Yeah. So here we'd be talking about this area on the left.
Right.
Yep.
See the slope too?
There
where
was
it's
something
pushing that way.
died.
Yeah, it looks like you have a higher area in here.
If you can see how,
Could I, is there any way we could condition it to add the plantings, just extend them up to this portion of the patio here?
Yeah.
I think that's what we were
what-
discussing, yeah.
So
So,
maybe we could just condition that with the approval here, or do you have to have a plan that shows
Um,
that?
It has to be on the plan, as shown on the plan.
We've conditioned
We
it
can-
before where they can
we can
update
condition
the
it
plan.
and give us a new plan.
Yeah.
Oh, I want
Still-
it
We
on the plan.
we can, you can condition, we don't actually issue the permit until we get the plan in hand, but typically it's not a big deal, usually updated by the time we're done putting the paperwork together and having the commission sign it at the next meeting. But
Would everybody be comfortable moving forward at that point?
So you're saying wrap it all up tonight, and then we'll get the corrected plan?
it's up to the commission. I mean, it's been done before.
Yeah,
We've
no.
before, the commission has asked for mitigation plantings or certain things to be on there and specified that we need an updated plan before the
But
work
you won't
starts.
issue the permit until you see the plan.
Correct.
Makes sense.
So, as part of that, you'll review it, and if you feel it's acceptable, based on all your knowledge, we'll move forward.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is, like we discussed earlier, mitigation. You're talking a 4-foot wide mitigation strip, so you're planting native plants, things like little blue stem or bayberry,
To keep the size
zigzag
shadow down,
goldenrod,
please.
stuff that's gonna have deep roots, that's gonna get dense and established throughout there. I think you want language in there about the process, right? Because you don't want to be just having a landscape company show up, turf that off, plant a bunch of stuff and throw mulch down, or wood chips down, because one storm and all that stuff's gonna get dug up and you're gonna lose a lot of dirt that way. So I think you do need something sort of like what I was talking about with real targeted planting, so that you're not disturbing the whole area, but your conservation posts are gonna make it so you're not mowing behind that area anymore. So you likely have a little transition period where it's not the best looking area. You can get the biggest plants you want. Buying bigger plants will make it look better quicker, but it's not necessary. You could plant, small plugs and just make sure they establish over time. It is a tricky area, I think, to plant compared to some others because of that wave action.
I have one more comment.
Please.
Rosa rugosa is not a native plant. It's assumed by most people that it is, but was brought here from China a long time ago.
Well, isn't it really good for beach erosion and so on and so forth? That's
I'm
what
sorry?
That's for, Rosa rugosa, what I've known, has been really good for beach erosion.
Yeah,
and
but he
runoff.
just said there
It has
are
a
better
good root-
plants.
Just like poison ivy, it has a really good root structure to help, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, that's a
Go
native.
out to Saquosh and you'll,
Yeah.
the poison ivy out there is crazy, but,
Rugosa rose is okay. It's not the best, and partially for that reason.
Okay.
It's one of the species, I think, of interesting origin that sort of made its way to all the beaches of the world.
Yeah.
So certainly, I think there's better plants, but.
But you specified native, then it's not. Right.
Correct, yeah, I wouldn't, so I don't typically recommend ripping out rugosa rose to replace it with something native where it's established, but I wouldn't approve, rugosa rose as mitigation plantings, just for that purpose. It's not really native, and it's not really the best thing for that scenario.
Okay. So are you clear on what we're looking for?
yes,
we move
if you
forward?
have a recommendation on type of plantings you'd want in there, I'm all for it.
We have plant lists, don't we?
Yeah, and I think, Paul, I think we've had a few
Yeah,
before,
we could have our
similar,
landscape architect.
similar situations. So if you have any questions about that while he's putting it together, or you want to have him reach out to me, that's fine. too.
All right. Are we, go ahead, sorry.
No, so are we,
I am, if you are. Everybody ready? Okay. So if we're ready to move forward, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll take a voice vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jim's a yes. So we close the public hearing, and now we will take a motion to do a certain action. What are we thinking?
So the next motion would be to approve the project with the conditions as stipulated and pending the acceptance of an updated plan.
All right, so we have a motion to approve based on the discussions here tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a voice vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan?
Yeah.
Jim's a yes. All right, so Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, the time is now 7:45. We'll move on to section B, Baker Avenue, map 58, lot 92-6. Notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home with a driveway, garage, deck, water, roof water infiltration system, drinking well water, utilities, grading, and landscaping within the 100-foot buffer zone to a BVW and the 200-foot riverfront area to an intermittent stream. Now reopen the hearing. We will now hear a briefing from Matt. This language is a little bit off. If the applicant is present, please come forward and present your information.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with ECR on behalf of Baker Avenue Trust. Along with me is Evan Weil on the applicant team, and Dick Benedictus, professional engineer. You can get into questions on engineering. At the last meeting, we did have a brief discussion on the project, introduce the project and the components of the project. Matt, if you do get a chance, if you pull up the plan, that'd be awesome. Thanks. There was question on the ownership and applicant information, and the commission asked that we provide that detail with a notarized signature. We have done that. The applicant is been changed appropriately to Baker Avenue Trust. Matt Haney is the trustee, and he's on the Zoom call as well tonight. So we have provided that documentation that the commission requested. We updated the notice of intent to correct the notice of intent form and corrected the notice of intent site plans. The project as proposes a single-family home on Baker Avenue. It's an undeveloped lot. It's a larger lot. The majority of it is wetland as you move from Route 3A into the site towards Baker Avenue. What we're proposing is a single-family home with a gravel driveway, a drinking water well, grading and utilities. The site will connect to sewage, so there isn't an on-site sewage disposal system needed. There is on-site drinking water well proposed, and we are proposing landscaping in and around the project. The project has been designed to meet the Kingston Conservation Commission setbacks for building, stormwater, and no-touch zone. The project has also been designed to comply with the Commission's bylaw for work within the riverfront of an intermittent stream, which is under your bylaw. And the project has also been designed to be under the percent impervious. We're about 5.7% as compared to the 15% maximum allowance. There are stormwater components proposed along with the project. There's stormwater associated with the proposed dwelling, and there's also a stormwater infiltration system proposed within the driveway as you lead into the site. That stormwater system is associated with an upgrading project that will be coming to the commission under a separate notice of intent. But the intent is to get that installed now so that we can proceed with the project and people can occupy the property so that the work doesn't disrupt, obviously, the site to be performed later, so that we can complete that work now. As I said, went over the project, you can see the lines. There's your intermittent stream down gradient of the BVW, and then the offsets as we move further into the site. Evan, do you think I missed anything?
I don't think so, other than the fact that we propose to put the drainage system underground rather than having an open pit, and that was what we propose to do as an addition to the project. So rather than an open drainage pit retention basin, it'll be underground completely.
Is that, Brad, is that it?
Yes, that's it for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll let you know if we have any further questions or
requiring a response. We're gonna hear from the conservation agent at this point. Matt, we opened a meeting previously. I don't know that we really got the full staff report reviewed because you weren't here. So if you could just proceed under that understanding.
Okay, yeah. As Brad said, we got the new application packet, the new applicant ownership. I won't go through the whole ownership thing again. It was pretty confusing and I think still is confusing, but they have satisfied that we now have the owner of the property as the applicant and signatory on the filing. So I won't even go through all of that information. It just appears that we have what we need there. We do have the trustee certificate for Baker Ave Trust. It's not clear why the NOI filing sort of was submitted the way it was, but we'll skip past it for now. As far as process, WPA and KWPR do not require a new filing, abutter notifications, or public notice when the applicant or the property owner change. So from a legal standpoint, we're good to keep going with the new applicant. Did a site visit June 5th. The wetlands were delineated by ECR in October of 2024. We talked a little bit at the site visit about the orders of conditions that were issued for lot 5892-4, which is now known as 10 Baker Ave. Because of the way that filing had dealt with the intermittent stream. When I got back and checked through our files, the 10 Baker Ave filing only confirmed the extent of the riverfront, the KWPR only riverfront area. The wetland flags for the BVW and the inland bank were reviewed during several prior filings, but they were never confirmed officially. So we don't have confirmation in this project of the type of stream or even the boundary of the stream, although I believe we looked through a couple of the flags on the site visit. So as far as where the stream is, I feel like we have reviewed that. It's a matter of we haven't reviewed the type. Proposed work is located within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and the 200-foot riverfront area associated with a supposed intermittent stream. A portion of the proposed dwelling is located within the inner 100-foot riverfront area, along with a portion of the yard.
Matt, just for my clarification, you said supposed on that.
Yeah, we have it.
We assume it's an intermittent stream because it's shown as such on.
It's shown as an intermittent stream on the plan. I believe the idea was that it was not on the USGS map, but I don't have evidence that we've confirmed that it is an intermittent stream or what type of intermittent stream it is. I remember from prior filings here having abutters claim that the stream never stops flowing. I don't know. I've been on site a few times. I don't believe I've ever seen it dry. This is I believe, a direct tributary of Smelt Brook. This passes underneath Baker Ave and then Cole Ave and connects into Smelt Brook, and would have from there direct connection out to the Jones River and Kingston Bay. Smelt Brook is impounded just upstream of where this stream connects into Smelt Brook, but there is connection out to the ocean from there. So let me get back to where it was. And again, on the prior 10 Baker Ave, filing, the commission did not go to the extent of getting to the bottom of what type of stream that was, because the filing that was in front of them was mitigating the full extent of the 200-foot riverfront area that was located on that property. So that part was sort of skipped over for gaining a benefit there of protection for that resource area. Proposed project is on a currently undeveloped lot. There is sign of, historic disturbance on the site. It looks like at some point a lot of the site was pushed around in one way or the other, but it is not currently developed. Natural vegetation is there. Proposal includes construction of a new single-family house just past the 50-foot no structure setback to BVW and partially within the inner KWPR riverfront area to that stream. The project includes a roof water infiltration system as mitigation. It had been shown initially within the 40-foot buffer to BVW, which would have required a waiver. It has since been moved to the outer extent of jurisdiction, sort of half in jurisdiction and half out. So that was moved significantly away from the resource areas. Proposal includes a large Cultec underground drainage system beneath the gravel driveway for future drainage. This had appeared to violate KWPR as well by being within the 40-foot, and the updated plan moves the system just outside of the 40-foot zone by 6 inches. However, it's unclear what the proposed future drainage would consist of.
So Matt, what's your guidance on this one, this part specifically, right? Because if we have a component that's identified to address a future need, how do we know what the impact is to the resource area if we don't know what the actual future need is? So
Right.
how do we contemplate, something that we don't have in front of us? And
Right.
that's my concern with that aspect.
I'll get to that under recommendations. This is just findings. I'll get to that in a second. Proposed impervious surface is below the 15%, as Brad stated. Conservation posts are proposed, generally following the limit of work, which is, it roughly coincides with the 30-foot no landscaping setback to the BVW under KWPR. I had noted before that the detail did not show the correct height of the posts. That was fixed on the most recent plan, 2 feet below, 2 feet above. So KWPR 6.04B7, lands within 200 feet of rivers, streams, and creeks are presumed important to the protection of these resource areas because activities undertaken in close proximity to resource areas have a high likelihood of adverse effect upon them, either immediately as a consequence of construction or over time as a consequence of daily operation or existence of the activities. I'm not going to read the rest of that, but it talks about impacts, including erosion and wildlife habitat, essentially the interests of the wetlands.
Matt, excuse me, were you going to go back to the portion about frontage and things like that, or?
Skipped that part.
Skip that
I can
part.
speak to it if you would like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was from a comment about zoning, and it was only being brought up just so that the commission was aware of it and the applicant would be aware of it, but
Right.
apparently our zoning doesn't work that way. So that was something that was brought up that was incorrect. Basically, what it is was frontage for this lot is along Main Street, but completely blocked by wetlands all along Main Street. So in that sense, the frontage would be on Baker Ave and on the road that appears to the left that doesn't exist, which shows up on the town GIS as Foundry Pond Drive, but apparently is not a road. It's not something that really exists. So
Right, because
what it
was it-
appeared to be was that frontage was being used on a road that doesn't exist, but the way our town zoning works apparently is you can use frontage on a road you're not accessing from when there are wetlands in the way, which seems weird, but apparently that's the way
But
it
it doesn't
is.
exist.
What doesn't exist?
The road doesn't exist.
Well, no, they don't need that. The frontage apparently is sufficient between Main Street, probably Main Street alone, but between Main Street and Baker Ave, because apparently you can use it as frontage even if there are wetlands blocking it, which seems weird, but that's the way it is, so I skipped that. That was just sort of going to be a note. All right. KWPR 6.04C1, general performance standards for riverfront areas. No activity or work other than the maintenance of an already existing structure which will result in the building within or upon removing, filling, or altering a riverfront area shall be permitted by the Conservation Commission, except upon a clear showing by a preponderance of credible evidence that any proposed work and its natural and consequential cumulative impacts and effects shall have no adverse effect upon any of the bylaw wetland values. Burden of proof is on the applicant. As part of the applicant's burden of proof, it is the responsibility of the applicant to provide the Conservation Commission with any and all information that the Commission may request orally or in writing that the Commission deems necessary to enable it to ascertain whether the proposed work and its natural and consequential cumulative impacts and effects will not have any adverse effect upon any of the bylaw wetland values. Sometimes I say interests, values, interchangeable. The Commission may deny the application where the applicant fails to furnish any information requested by the Commission. 6.04C3 provides performance standards for riverfront area of intermittent streams based on stream type. The representative claims this is a type 2 stream for which KWPR 6.04C3B states, for the riverfront area for a type 2 intermittent stream, no activity other than the maintenance of an already existing structure that will result in the building within or upon or removing, filling, dredging, or altering of said intermittent stream, or within 50 feet of the type 2 intermittent stream within the riverfront area may be permitted by the commission except as provided under the aforesaid subsection C1. I have not confirmed the stream type, as I said before. The project proposes a limit of work approximately 57 feet from the inland bank of the stream. This would meet the standard of 6.04C3B, but the general performance standard of 6.04C1 still applies. 6.04C3E. The commission may require that the applicant maintain a strip of continuous undisturbed vegetative cover within the 100-foot riverfront area of any intermittent stream unless the applicant overcomes the presumption of significance by a preponderance of the credible evidence that the area or a portion of it may be disturbed without harm to the wetland values. Wetland values from KWPR 1.02, public water supply, private water supply, surface water, groundwater, water quality and quantity, flood control and management, erosion and sedimentation control, storm damage prevention, prevention and abatement of pollution, fisheries, both finfish and shellfish, wildlife and its habitat, plant and animal species listed as special concern, threatened or endangered, and protection of their natural habitat, wetland plant and animal communities, stormwater management, aquaculture and agriculture. I mentioned sort of all that and threw a lot of stuff out there because I'll go through all my recommendations now, but essentially it's on the commission to determine what values the stream and these wetlands are providing, and it's up to the applicant to show that through everything they've shown and everything they show from here going forward that none of those values are going to be detrimentally impacted by this development. So let's skip this. We got proof of a abutter notification. Talking about the stormwater, I had said before to move out of the 40-foot buffer, which they did, but there is still a large proposed feature lacking information on drainage area or storm sizing. The commission should request this information in order to ensure there will be no detriment to the wetlands being only 40.5 feet away. Should no information be provided, the commission may deny the project for lack of information or have a peer reviewer assume the maximum drainage or flow scenario from the expired subdivision plan adjacent to this property from 2017. If necessary, the commission could heavily condition any approval involving the future drainage system in order to prevent any detrimental effects. Alternately, the applicant could modify the plan to remove the drainage system and maintain a drainage easement instead. That way, the drainage system could be reviewed in a future filing along with the drainage area and all accurate calculations. The commission may want confirmation of stream type and should determine whether the applicant has overcome all KWPR resource area standards under 6.04. Commission may wish to determine which of the wetland values or interests the stream provides, as well as the BVW. My suggestions would be C, E, F, K, M, and N from KWPR 1.02, but there may be others. Commission may wish to perform a site visit to see the stream in BVW in order to more accurately assess the values provided, or they may determine to put it out to peer review. Regardless of whether the extra future drainage system stays in the filing, I think the commission should want more information on the wetland values or interests provided by the stream and associated BVW before making any decision, particularly as this filing proposes significant development within the inner 100-foot KWPR riverfront area and the presumed significance of not only the inner 100-foot but the entire 200-foot area. In this process, the commission could confirm whether the stream meets the standards for an intermittent stream rather than perennial, which would require further action relative to 310 CMR 10. As I said before, this stream is a direct tributary to Smelt Brook and a portion of Smelt Brook with connectivity to the ocean, which I believe would make it a more important resource worth looking into. And that's what I got.
Quick question, did we get a proposed impervious coverage?
Yes, it is less than 15%.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody here from the public that wants to be heard on this matter?
Stop sharing so I can see. Do not see any hands raised.
All right, we'll now open, we'll now move to commissioner discussion. Again, the applicant is asked to remain at the podium. Commissioners may have follow-up questions which you're welcome to answer freely, but please keep in mind that this is not an open forum or a debate. Okay. Commissioners, where are we?
Can I just ask a question for clarification?
Absolutely.
Brad, I've been doing
Yes.
this a long time. I've never seen you present with somebody at your side who doesn't appear by name on the application, so I'm a little confused.
Well, I do have a rule against that, but when somebody's a better-looking fellow, I always bring the more handsome people up
Nice
to
try.
accompany me.
Nice try.
So,
What's going on?
Evan's part of the team, and
Team?
he's part of the applicant team.
Okay.
He's my client, along with Matt Haney, so I'm not going to tell my client he can't accompany
No,
me.
no, I understand, but you,
So-
please understand my perspective in that I don't see his name on any documents, I don't know who he
Okay.
is, and we've just been through that whole thing about ownership, so.
I did introduce, I may not have been clear in the beginning, but I did introduce Evan Weil as part of the team
Right,
at
and
the
I,
beginning.
and forgive me, I wasn't familiar with
No, I hear you, and I maybe
That
should
thing
have given
of
more,
Celtics I can
Information on
relate
that.
to, but team here, not so much.
yep,
Thank you.
sure, thank you.
All right, so there's kind of a lot going on in this parcel. It's intermittent stream, it's a non-intermittent stream, it's a, what do we call those? Perennial streams, right?
Perennial versus intermittent,
Yeah,
is that where you're going?
there's a big difference here, right? I don't think we can really do anything until we actually have that answer. And I don't like considering moving forward on anything until I actually have the answers that we need on this one. So it would be, that's where I would be. My personal feeling is that we need that answer before we continue the discussion. There's lots going on, this isn't my
Yeah,
only
that's
thing, but
one answer of many.
that's my biggest one, right? So if it is a perennial stream or even an intermittent stream, we know that it's a stream, and we're within the 100-foot, and then we're doing something with, a storm drainage that's not, not in front of us.
That has
we have
nothing to do with
wells.
this house per se, it's for some future project. Is
Right,
that
right.
what I'm
And-
hearing?
And, yeah, exactly. And Matt, walk me through, there was an email from Val in the folder about expired. What's the,
Oh, the subdivision plan.
what's the
was expired.
subdivision plan that this stormwater, guys, guys, excuse me. This is why we're here. So if I can't hear Matt, we're not gonna be able to do our job. So I'm just gonna ask you to refrain or step outside so that you can discuss. Discuss all you need, just not when it's overtaking us, right?
Sure.
So what is Val's discussion from the 2017 subdivision? It isn't a subdivision, and somehow we're incorporating drainage from that into this project here? I'm really uncomfortable with that aspect.
Yeah, I don't know that the idea is that it's necessarily that. There was a subdivision here, I believe approved in 2017 and then never built. And by the way that the planning rules work, if you don't build it within a certain amount of time, it doesn't exist anymore.
Clarification, that was approval by the planning board.
Correct, yeah, not the Conservation
Yeah,
Commission,
not
right,
us.
sorry. The planning board, approved a subdivision that was never built, therefore expired. So that, I think, is what Val has sent information on, was just that, FYI, there is no actual subdivision there. I don't think that what's been shown to us necessarily is anything to do with that subdivision. It could be about a new plan that they're bringing forward that may look like that, may not look like that. The point,
You mean a future subdivision?
correct. The point, I think, for the commission is that they don't know. And while getting stormwater into the ground is fantastic, without having anything for information on what the drainage area is, what the storm sizing is, or anything, you can't know that that is sized correctly. Therefore, that could be problematic if it starts to either back up or blow out, or I don't know. So that, I think, is where the commission would want more information about that, and I think that's why, obviously, if they don't have a plan yet, and this is just something that's for the future, they're not going to want to go and do a bunch of calculations on possibilities and come back with that, but if
And
you-
then we won't have the information we need.
Correct, and that's where I think if you did go to peer review and you did not get any calculations, that's where, that old subdivision plan would come in, because it is something that is on file that could be referenced, and a peer reviewer could take the maximum flow scenario and apply it to that entire site and say, this is what this is gonna see. So I think it's completely legitimate for the commission to want information about that, because it is 6 inches outside of a no stormwater system boundary to this wetland, and if it does not function correctly, I think has a high likelihood of being problematic for that wetland and potentially that stream. And just following up a little more on the stream, we hear it a lot, and I've heard it on this site from, a few people who were, let's say in Brad's position on this, that like, I think it's an old ditch, I think there was an old cranberry bog here, it's not really a stream, it's a ditch, or that sort of stuff. There's frequently talk that downplays streams as either man-made or modified, or that sort of thing, and.
But isn't it true if it's functioning?
Yeah, no, it's a stream regardless.
The
in those
language doesn't matter if it's
situations, but
man-made or not.
Right.
My point,
It's there.
my point is that
Water's
it's, I never discount, in those situations just on face value on that, because, like I said, a little bit of digging on this showed that this likely connects hydraulically directly to Smelt Brook and a portion that connects out to the ocean. Now, is this the most fantastic habitat right here? I don't imagine that it likely is, based on that it's right off of Main Street and there's a parking lot, right next to it on the little lot that's just off screen that has, stone dust that's been dumped over the years and plowed over the edge and all that. I mean, it likely has been impacted, but it may be part of a really important system that's just been impacted for several hundred years of development in this area. That doesn't mean the commission should take it lightly and assume that it's a lower quality ditch or intermittent stream and not do their due diligence. I
No,
think
it has
that
standing.
development in the riverfront area, KWPR or WPA, needs a certain level of scrutiny that the commission should apply to a project like this, to make sure that if you're going to allow development within 57 feet of this intermittent stream and a structure, driveway and yard within the inner 100 foot, that, you're sure that it's not going to cause more impacts to a resource area that is really high value.
When's the last time you were on site?
June 5th, I believe.
Was it? Oh, that was that
June
site?
5th, yeah.
June 5th. Okay, but the commission hasn't done a site walk there, has it?
No, the commission did a site walk on the 10 Baker Ave site probably 4 years ago at this point, or 3 years ago, I think. So it's been a while since they've been even in the area.
To the stream, I mean, going back to 10 Baker Ave, that was definitely something that I stopped by to look at, and the water was flowing, so.
Oh.
It was summertime, I don't remember when that was, but that was the summertime. And I expected that at that time that if it was not gonna be flowing, it would not be flowing at that time, because it was August or whatever, whenever
wow.
that was. So it is absolutely something that we need to resolve before we move forward on consideration of everything else that they have in front of us. That's where I'm at. I don't know
I hear you.
about everybody else. Dot, Brian, Meg?
Yeah, I agree.
That's my first concern.
All right, now, I mean, this is a tight little site. This is, what was this? This is an old cranberry bog, correct? That's what they moved the water, and it's along the ditch now, right? It
Supposedly.
seems like.
I haven't seen anything really definitive on that, but it's definitely possible that, there was a stream here that was modified and ditches were cut lateral, and that's what it would look like, looking at the way it's drawn on here, is that there may have been a lateral arm and some ditching done on what was at one point a natural formed stream. I don't know.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's a stream until it's proven otherwise. So either we move forward with that logic, because it's the only one that we can defend, or we give them the opportunity to bring in a scientist who tells us that it's a ditch.
Or we do a peer review?
Well, I mean, at this point, they're not claiming that it's a ditch. I mean, it does show existing ditch typical on the on the plan, but it's called out as an intermittent stream, and in the wetlands report, it's called out as a specific type of intermittent stream, as I mentioned. I think the commission seeing the site in a situation like this is always good. They do have the location of the foundation staked out in the field.
good.
I think and I think it's a good idea for the commission to see the habitat, see the wetlands, see the stream. But, you know, I think in terms of determining for sure whether it's intermittent or perennial or a certain tier of intermittent stream, then, you know, you may want peer review on that, or you may ask them to do more work on that and then peer review what they come back with. It's up to the commission.
All right, what else do we want to discuss just at a basic level here, based on what we've heard tonight? I mean, my stance on the stormwater is that I can't sit up here and say that I evaluated everything if I don't have everything behind it supporting the answer. And it seems to me at this point, we're asked to accept the answer is this system is sufficient for everything else, and it's okay, and nothing's gonna get into it that would impact this wetland area. I don't think I approve any kind of stormwater until I see the rest of that project. So the stormwater, to me, is something that, unless it's site-specific, I don't wanna see it on this filing, because how can I defend that if I permit it, how do I defend that was my answer?
And that's my feeling. For me, it's an unknown. I mean, to put it simply.
How's everybody else feel?
Same.
All right, so anybody else have anything else that they want to call out at this point before I expect we're continuing?
Well, I think we should agree to a site walk. And I think give you the opportunity to define the stream, and then possibly have a peer review of what all else we come up with. This is
Do we feel
unusually
that peer
different.
review is the way that we want to go on this because of everything that we're looking at in front of us?
I think there's so much for me, I would take more, I would feel more confident going forward if I had that.
Dot, would you agree? Brian?
Yeah.
Megan? I agree as well. I think that this one's complex enough that, you know, I think it would bring some clarity to the commission to see that as well, so. How do you want to proceed, Matt?
You can certainly do both. You can continue this while we put out, you know, invitation for quotes on peer review and schedule a site visit.
Are you able to coordinate some dates with Mr. Holmes and circulate it to the commission?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, just Kalina's out, you know, Kalina and Buzz both, I think, are traveling right now, so it would be probably in a couple of weeks would be the best time frame.
So they're gone for another week or so, you think?
I imagine.
If I could just, my travel days are typically Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm usually local Monday and Tuesday, so.
And Tuesday's a later date for
True.
you.
Yeah, Tuesday would be a good day for it.
So Tuesday's good.
Maybe we might aim for third week in July, maybe. I'll write that down.
The third week in July is next week.
That's next week, right?
Is
So-
it?
Yeah.
Oh, it started on
It's starting out
He started early. The next week after that.
the week of the 21st, so we'd be looking potentially at the 21st, 22nd, whatever. I can
Would-
always go by myself if I'm the odd man out, so. don't-
Or if a couple of us would go together, but I mean, the more that can go, I think it's really important. So what are the Monday, Tuesday, or,
Monday and Tuesday would be mine, but I think Matt's gonna,
I know I can't go
Circulate.
the 24th. I cannot, so,
24th is a Thursday.
that's a Thursday,
Yeah.
right, so. Nope.
July 22nd, how many commissioners here could do July
Good
22nd?
for me.
July 22nd, I think so.
I can make that.
What time of day are you
Let's
talking about?
say, I mean, Brad, if you were to do July 22nd, would later in the day work for you? I mean, I'm thinking, is it better for most of you to have it be like 4 or 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah? Which?
Towards the end.
5 o'clock?
I can make either one, so as long
Does
as
that work for you, or is
Yeah,
it
later
too late?
gives
I can
me a
do it
lot of
anywhere
time.
after 4.
That should work for me. I would ask for 4, just in case I have another meeting in the evening, because if we go to 5 and then it's 6,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I had to come to Kingston,
So you're
that
thinking
would be
4?
late.
Is 4 o'clock
4 is
feasible?
fine with me.
Okay.
4 is
So
fine.
4 on the 22nd is what we're aiming for?
Yeah.
All right, and then you'll coordinate and reach out for peer review?
So, the way we would do peer review is, we would put out usually to three consultants for quotes. We would send them the information we have. What we would need from the applicant before we do that is something for them to go on when reviewing the Caltech, the larger future use stormwater system, as well as any calculations that were used to do the roof drainage system as well. So that way, when we're presenting the information for the quotes, we have everything in one place, and they're not then coming back to us and saying like, oh, we need to see those before, and then they're asking for more money, because that did happen recently. So I would say we need that from you before we send those emails out to those consultants.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What do you need from me? From
We
us?
need whatever we're including in sending it to the consultant so that they can review the future use stormwater system.
Yes, we can provide additional information on that. We have that available, so there's 2 items that you discussed, the stream and the engineering. We can discuss that further, but Dick was here to talk about engineering, but because you're asking it for more formal, we can put together a more package, an additional information package to support this,
Okay.
that you're going to include on that submittal is what you're asking for.
Yes, if you get that to me, then we package that with what you've already submitted. We put it out to 3 different consultants and say, give us a quote for peer review
Okay.
by this date. And then we present that to the commission. The commission makes a decision. You accept or don't accept, and that's how that process works. So I would say we need to typically continue a little ways out for these in order to be able to put all that information together. Because we need the information from you, then we have to put it out to them, then we have to give them a reasonable amount of time to put bids together and get them back to us before whenever that meeting is. If it doesn't work and we have to continue again to wait for the bids, that happens too. But typically, I would say for peer review, we're probably usually a minimum of a month and a half, 2 months that we continue out to wait for having all that information.
Well, we're going to meet on the 22nd anyway for a site visit.
Right.
But if we were to schedule, how about if we continued, even though I know the peer review, because the peer review process, it's hard to anticipate the,
Right.
timing on that, but if we scheduled a meeting shortly after the 22nd, whatever that timing is, you can always continue it, but at least it's in the books as far as when we're on your agenda. We'll
Yeah,
have
it's just, I mean, at that point, we're not gonna, if it's going out to peer review by the so the 23rd is our next meeting, so if the meeting was on the 22nd, then there's no way we're gonna have anything by
Well,
that
then the
point.
next meeting, I'm just saying,
It's
just, I know
basically
you have
as quick as
we have
you
to
can
have
get
a
stuff
date
to us.
certain, right? So-
Yeah, that's why
right.
typically what I do on these, so we have, this is the first meeting in July, the next one's the 23rd. I would say the earliest that I would recommend coming back on this would be August 27th. I mean, more reasonable would probably be September 10th, because it's gonna take you some form of time to get us the information that we need. Then I have to put that together with a package and a request for the 3 vendors and get it out to them, and I need to tell them they have to have it back to us by a certain time. And then we have to have time to actually go through and assess the 3 and make a recommendation to the commission. So I would say more than likely what makes the most sense is September 10th. We're still gonna have our site visit on July 22nd regardless, but I don't think there's a point in coming in at the next meeting to talk about the site visit when it's gonna go to peer review anyways.
I agree. For timing's sake, would it be possible for the August 22nd, 27th, and then
And then just
Keep
continue
it
on if it's
a
not done, yeah,
little-
that's fine. I don't have an issue with that.
track?
Let me think. Yeah, I am going away, but unfortunately, I think that I'm not missing a meeting because of the trip.
Matt,
Value.
dedication. All right, anything else?
Not for now.
Matt, do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight?
No, I think that's good.
All right.
So
Can I have a-
motion to continue to August 27th, is that what we agreed upon?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, we'll take a voice vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jim's a yes. So we'll continue to 8:27.
We'll see you 5 o'clock on July 22nd for the site visit.
No, 4.
4
I thought you said
o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. See, that's why I said it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Because
I'm starving, I just.
All
wanna
right,
get
section
my-
C, Matt, this is continued, correct?
yes.
Okay. All right, so I reopen the hearing for the, for notice of intent for the proposed construction of an addition and porch along the rear of the existing home within a 100-foot buffer zone to a BBW and the 200-foot riverfront area of an intermittent stream at 49 Old Mill Road. The applicant has requested a continuance until August 13th, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to continue in a second. We'll take a vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jim's a yes, so we'll continue. Let's see. Enforcement, Matt, we did 164 Pembroke, 44 Rabbit Road. Do you have an update?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. All right, so it's been a little while on this one. So I went back and updated the staff report just so that we could revisit kind of where we're at with everything. It's been about a year that we've been talking about this and just kind of occasionally kicking things down the road. I've also been getting emails, photos, and videos from the abutters of what look like violations or potential wetland violations on 44 Rabbit property. And I also have records from I have Kingston Fire Department records from a July 4th, 2025 incident on the property. I'm waiting on records from the police department on that. I won't go back through much of the old stuff, but I will rehash anything where there have been either changes or discussion. Early on, we talked about there's been a dock on the site since at least 1971, if not 1960, based on view of aerial imagery. And we've talked a lot about the commission needing to go back through our dock regulations and determine what the cutoffs are going to be for enforcement or requiring permits and those sort of things. And I put it on for July 23rd, so hopefully we can actually finally do that. Because we've been talking about it for a long time.
But if necessary, we could use what is established.
Of course, yeah, no, I mean, the commission has a full,
Right.
our regulations provide a full breakdown of how things should work. It's just a matter of, are you gonna go enforce on every single person in town who has a dock that wasn't permitted that's been there since 1960, 1980, 2000, what's that? So that was where the commission was gonna sort of determine how it was gonna work in all those age classes, and we have some good ideas for that. But anyways, for this particular one, dock's been there forever, obviously it was never permitted. The dock was replaced and significantly resized between 2019 and 2021. It's now roughly 50 feet long and 13 feet wide, just based on measurements off the aerial imagery. We talked about that, a year ago, but we haven't really
Right,
talked
because
about it in
of-
any substantive way. Partially because of that expectation that we were gonna come out with guidance anyways and deal with that. But that's, for the record, that's there, hasn't been dealt with. The imagery had shown a smaller dock that was installed between 2011 and 2014 with the small structure on it. That was the duck dock. We now have evidence that dock was removed. I don't have evidence yet that it was removed completely from the area. It was just kind of like at the edge of the pond, which obviously the commission would want to see it completely gone and not, smothering any vegetation on the edge of the pond. But that was removed, and that was something the commission had asked for. There's a roughly 250 square foot floating dock that appears to be brought close to shore over the winters. This has also not been discussed by the commission. Based on what we have for information from the abutters and from the Kingston Fire Department incident report, it was clearly used for July 4th fireworks display in which part of the floating dock caught fire. An abutter called KFD on the morning of July 5th due to the dock smoldering, and they responded to put it out. Abutter photos from that morning show the dock covered in spent fireworks with a burn hole in it and a fire extinguisher nearby. Fireworks are known to contain many contaminants and are particularly damaging in smaller freshwater systems like Smelt Pond, although it's not always clear what the extent or long-term effects of that are. It's not very well studied, unfortunately. It's unclear whether a fire extinguisher also contains chemicals that would be considered contaminants in this type of a system and detrimental to the pond and the wetland resource areas nearby. Photos also show the plastic barrels used to support the floating dock floating away across the pond. Then we have a discussion that we had before about the tree clearing and the construction of the large retaining wall and the concrete pad for the driveway or parking area. Basically, the commission had said it's not likely that that would be permittable from, KWPR standpoint, but before, the commission went to the point of just mandating its removal, the idea was to see from the first standpoint, is it even approvable from a town building permit standpoint? So that was the guidance that was given to the homeowner, was to go through the process of getting a building permit. In the process, you would need to put together some sort of a structural plan to determine whether it was safe or not. It already doesn't meet setbacks on KWPR based on the distance and the height, but the idea was to have them see, can it even be permitted through the building department? So the only update on that is that the property owner has reportedly obtained the services of a structural engineer in order to produce drawings required in order to file for a building permit. As I said, it's still unclear whether the wall will be eligible for that permit, and it's almost certainly not permittable under Kingston Wetland Protection Regulations, but the commission, at least at that point, would have an ability to talk about potential options, whether it was removal, modification, or permitting in retro with mitigation, which is possible, but there's not a ton of opportunity for that here. So the wall and the concrete parking area continue to be unpermitted modifications within jurisdiction. We talked early on, there were multiple sheds on the property within jurisdiction of unknown age, including a log burning stove shed. The commission hasn't really discussed that. A good portion of the unpermitted alterations have occurred off of the subject property on land owned by Jennifer DeRico. Tom Carroll, the owner of the property, has told me that they have a friendly relationship and that the DeRicos have given him permission to use those areas. Not that that's necessarily something that's directly under the commission's control, but we haven't really reached out to them at all, and it might make sense to at this point. I mean, the way that the wetlands regulations and the law around that works, I mean, they might end up being somehow liable for unpermitted work there.
Because they own it.
Since they own it. So, I mean, it may make sense at some point to bring them into the conversation to make sure at least they understand this. So they own the area where the concrete parking area was installed, as well as the sheds and some of the dumping of vegetation and earth that was reported by the abutters. I won't go through all of the recommendations. I've already really talked about a lot of this stuff in terms of the fact that the site's been developed for a long time, long before the regulations, but there have clearly been changes to the site unpermitted. So according to the photos and videos sent by the abutter, and I know one of the abutters is here to speak to this, unpermitted jurisdictional work has continued in the form of earthworks and dumping of landscape debris, as well as setting off fireworks from the unpermitted floating dock. The earthworks are disturbing an area prone to runoff into the wetlands behind 46 Rabbith Road that are connected to the pond. And as I mentioned before, fireworks are known contaminants. They contain perchlorates, heavy metals, and often unknown compounds. Most fireworks are made in China without regulations on their composition. I decided just to give a little more breakdown through KWPR, how it deals with docks now. So KWPR 10.03 is docks, piers, walkways, and floats. Section B4, residential property shall not be permitted to have more than one dock, pier, walkway, or float in combination or otherwise at any time. It goes on to encourage private property owners to collaborate on shared dock designs. But in this case, when this first came in front of us, it had 3 docks, including the floating dock, and it currently has 2. B5, docks, piers, walkways, and/or floats shall not degrade inland or coastal wetland resource areas during construction or for the life of the structure through alteration of water quality and various other things, but I kind of highlighted through alteration of water quality based on what we have just for photos from July 4th and the unknown of, how many contaminants does that introduce into the pond from that float. Several other performance standards apply related to impacts on native aquatic vegetation or limits on dock or pier size. It's highly unlikely that the recently expanded dock would be permitted by the commission. It is roughly 13 feet wide versus the maximum standard of 4 feet in section B17. While the third and smallest dock was removed, the property still has the 2 docks, including the floating one. Section B19 states that the commission may require that no float or terminal portion of a dock shall exceed more than 160 square feet in area. And they have held that standard pretty hard with recent dock filings in my time here. The existing floating dock measures roughly 250 square feet, so about 90 square feet bigger than KWPR allows. So to summarize the dock issue, the property had 3 unpermitted docks, still contains 2, and they're both significantly larger than that allowable under KWPR dock standards. The main dock was significantly larger recently without a permit. The floating dock is used for activities that contaminate Smelt Pond and its associated wetlands, though the extent of the contamination is unknown. That's what I got for an update.
All right. Sir, thank you for waiting. If you'd like to approach, would you like to be heard? Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
Just for the record, when you get there, please state your name and address.
Sure, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Sean Stangalini, and we have a house on 46 Rabbith Road that abuts 44 Rabbith Road. I own 46 Rabbith Road with my wife, Estelle. A lot of the things I was going to mention, actually, Matt had covered, so I think I'll just focus on the wall itself. So as I understand the wall, it's 16 feet high or 14 feet high, and then there's a smaller wall that's roughly 6 feet high, so like in an L shape. And so aside of the conservation issues, I had sent Matt an email in regards to that. I'm happy to talk about that if you would like. But in regards to the wall, one of our concerns is the 6-foot portion of the wall, of the L shape. It sits right in our deeded right-of-way. We tried to litigate this issue, but the Carrolls haven't responded, so our attorney is in the process of filing a default. In addition to the conservation issues that are involved, there's that right-of-way issue. I just also want to speak a little bit to my thoughts on the wall, if I may. It appears, I believe there's a high degree of probability that where the fill came from that, to build that wall and to level off the parking area came from Del Rico's Hill, because there's been a couple, since we've been there, the owner of 44 Rabbith Road has used a front-end loader to move dirt around. And on that hill, there's, I've seen boat engines, I've seen oil, I've seen little devices that are probably related to boat engines, nuts, bolts, empty alcohol containers. So my guess is that whatever fill that they used for that wall would not meet conservation's standards for fill. And I guess the other part would just simply be the email that I sent Matt with pictures. I don't know if you'd like me to walk through that, or if you folks have already reviewed that. It sounds like in talking to Matt, those issues have already been well addressed.
Right.
you want me to talk about it, or are you all set?
No, you,
No, we're good. We got the pictures. Matt explained it. We can put it all together, I guess.
Okay.
Please go on. We understand the pictures,
Okay.
okay? Just because they're in the folder for us, so I've reviewed them, I'm sure everybody else has.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's probably all I have to say, unless you have any questions for me or would like to talk further on any of it.
Anyone have any questions?
no, I appreciate your vigilance. I'm sure not everyone does, but thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Do we want to talk to the homeowner? She's on, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so, I'm sorry, it's Jenna. Jenna Carroll, would you like to be heard?
Sure. Just a couple things here. In regards to Mr. Stangolini's comments about the wall, those are kind of hearsay. I know you all look for facts. The information that he presented there is his opinion and not fact. So some of the information shared is not correct. Additionally, the 6-foot section of the wall is right next to my house. So if they believe that that is their right of way, they would have to drive through my house to get to their property. So I just want to put that picture in your mind. As far as, the excavator being at the house recently, this was actually in response to Mr. Stangolini's comment to my husband that he was getting nails in his tires. So my husband, as a courtesy, brought home the excavator to kind of scrape some of the dirt debris off the corner of the cement patio. There wasn't any ground removal, no digging, anything like that. We just kind of scraped the dirt off to the side. So there really was no earth removal there at all. You want me to pause for a second before I continue?
No? No, please just work your way through.
Sure. As for fireworks on the 4th of July, absolutely, they're on our dock. You can see them in the photos. Mr. Stangolini and the commission here is making an assumption that those are actually our fireworks. If you do need to put the blame on somebody, happy to be that person. But I do want to just kind of share that it's been 25-year tradition from all neighbors. It's a thing. We have a big 4th of July event. It's been going on for over 25 years. It's not just us alone. So, happy to take the blame for that if you do need somebody to. It's just a shame that it has to, end this way, I guess.
Can I ask a question on that, maybe?
Yeah, Matt,
please.
please.
So, I will point out that, and I should have pointed out already, that I said I was waiting to hear information back from KPD. Because when KFD sent the information over, he said, I just want you to be aware that we don't have a responsible person identified for this event yet. So, but I guess my question would be like, are you saying that other people used your floating dock either on your property or then returned it to your property without
Bernie?
your knowledge about it? Like, that's where it just seems kind of funny. The commission obviously is interested in facts, and they always want to know.
Yeah.
So they're going to bring something like this to you, and if you have absolutely nothing to do with it, and it's that somebody showed up at your house and did this and ran away, they would certainly want to know about that. But if it's like you had people over and they went out and it was tradition and they do it, I think you're likely still responsible there, or the commission is likely to make a decision based on the situation, which is that there is an unpermitted dock there that isn't likely permittable based on the size that it is, or the fact that it's the second dock on the property, and it's being used by you or somebody else to do things that are going to end up in contaminants entering the pond. So I think that's where they're going to look to make their decisions there. So they certainly don't have to make any decisions before we get more information from KPD on any of that, but the stuff has to be brought to the commission so that they're aware of it. And they always want to make informed decisions. And just briefly on the other thing with the backhoe, Mr. Stangolini sent a couple of short videos showing that being used sort of across that area where there's the hill, sort of on the Dorico property where it leads down towards 46, and kind of what it looks like in the video is he's scraping dirt from where that hill meets the driveway, which
Tree roots?
yeah, exactly, exposes roots on mature trees, which is that in jurisdiction? I believe it is. Is that an activity that would be under jurisdiction? Yes, but it's also probably pretty dangerous for your property and anybody's property in the area, just in terms of undercutting those trees. But my bigger issue with that is I mentioned to Mr. Stangolini in my last site visit to 46 Rabbith Road, there's an issue there post-construction with stormwater running off that driveway and going down directly into the wetland associated with Smelt Pond, and that needs to be dealt with. Well, he then pointed out that the dirt that's running down there and getting into the wetland is coming from that area where he was doing the scraping and exposing dirt. The whole point of wetlands permitting, isn't just to prevent certain types of activities or development, it's to make sure that things are done the right way so that you don't end up with stormwater runoff impacting wetlands. You're not leaving things exposed, so that things can run off if there really is oil and everything in some of that, which of course, if you're storing vehicles or parking there, it's always a possibility. Any of that stuff is just gonna kind of run down with that dirt and get in there. So we have, I think, issues on both properties that need to be dealt with, but it's just, what about a magnet? That's the first thing I would, if I heard there were nails in a driveway, I would get a big magnet.
big magnet.
I've done it at our conservation property. You get a magnet and go over and it picks up the nails. I wouldn't get a backhoe and scrape soil in an area that, I guess the idea that I'm trying to get at here is that essentially, definitely your entire property and most of the area of the Dorico's property that you've said that you have, sort of agreement to use is within commission jurisdiction. And anything in that 100-foot area that disturbs soil, vegetation, builds something, all of those things need
Ends up in a wetland.
permitting. And so just kind of continue, you already have stuff here that's kind of slightly older that needs to be dealt with from an enforcement standpoint. You don't want to just, because right now it just kind of looks like a pattern of behavior that now it's like, now the backhoe's out and moving dirt around without a permit within jurisdiction and potentially adding to runoff-related issues. It's not,
Right.
not a good scenario.
Right, and of course, not the intention, that's why, we weren't digging into the hill, it's just scraping up kind of the cement there. And again, that was a direct result of Mr. Stangolini having a conversation with my husband. So, apologies for that. I can't take it back now, but
That's the problem, we can't change what's
Yeah.
been done.
yeah, and we didn't, we weren't digging into the hill by any means there at all, so.
Okay. Anything further, Ms. Karen?
I don't
No,
think so,
no,
I think I've answered everything.
Okay. All right, all right, so we're gonna take it back. If there's new facts that you want to present, but we're not gonna do the back and forth, that's not
Yeah.
what we're interested in. Okay.
Okay, for example.
Specific to conservation,
And it would have to be up at the podium.
and you have to approach it.
Yes, so actually there are.
But new facts only, specific to conservation. Okay.
Yes, okay, yeah, I won't be challenged your statements. So, there are, hopefully this is what you're looking for. I do have videos of them digging into the hill.
We've seen them.
Oh, you've seen them?
We've seen the
Okay.
videos.
All
Yeah,
right,
we've seen
okay.
the tree roots, we've seen it.
The boat fire?
And, yeah, that would be it. That was it.
Oh, and
Nope. We're gonna-
actually,
No, we're not doing back and forth here, so if you want to raise your hand, and it's, again, new facts pertaining to conservation only.
May I ask about this alleged boat fire that we have
You may
pictures
ask.
and
what you
video?
want, yeah.
Ms. Carroll, can you clarify the video and the imagery and the information we got about a possible boat fire in your driveway?
That was a neighbor's boat of ours.
Was it on your
that-
property?
Yeah, it was on the property. Yep, my husband was trying to fix it. And I don't know exactly what happened because I wasn't there for it. So I can't explain. The fire department wasn't needed, anything like that. Didn't go up in flames. The boat's actually in the water right now, functioning beautifully. So I don't know exactly what happened.
Do we need to point out contamination again?
Right, well, the problem, our concern is that there's maintenance happening on a boat within jurisdiction that then somehow caught fire, we don't know what happened. A fire extinguisher, again, was used on property, contaminated the land.
Which then runs off into the well.
Right, which then runs off down the hill with the wall, and then, you know, it's a continued issue.
That's the problem with this property that we've talked about, you know, for the last year occasionally, is that, you know, what Mr. Carroll initially said was he built the wall in the concrete parking area because they were having runoff-related issues. Unfortunately, the way the site is, runoff is still going to go down the other way and run into the other side, into the wetlands and into the pond. So it's not an ideal site for anything that's going to potentially contaminate. And it's something I think that, you know, it's great to work on people's cars and boats at home and save people money and help out and save yourself money. I do that stuff myself, but I don't live near wetlands or a pond, which is really helpful to me in that sense. So it's like, I think there are certain things here that, you know, you don't have there's nothing here at this site to protect the wetlands. In your backyard, there's a steep drop off and a little bit of turf. In some areas, there's a little bit of native plants, but for the most part, everything just either runs right off there into the pond or runs off to the right of 46 Rabbith Road and goes into the wetlands in the pond. There's nothing here to withhold anything. So if you have something there, whether it's some gas that leaks or fire extinguisher or any other type of contamination, and then it rains, it's going right into the wetland. And then, like, the commission is just supposed to, like, not.
Oh, well.
Right. It's.
I mean, the truth is, there's nothing that can be done on this site that wouldn't be within jurisdiction, right? Whether it's from the front side, as the earlier guy referenced his property, the water side, or the road side, because the marsh part of the pond is close to the road on that side. So
Correct.
they're on a peninsula and they're surrounded by water. There's nothing that can be done. There's a couple other things. I mean, there's in the satellite imagery, that this floating extra dock that's out there, it's 87 feet off the shoreline at some point. It's not a swim platform. It's going out in the middle of the lake and then swimming to it. So I don't think it's supposed to be there anyways at that point. I mean, I can understand access, but I think it's time to move that. I'm not saying that's all. I'm saying it's time to get that out of there.
Okay, and if I might, to your point, it was a year ago, all of these things came up. They were supposed to be addressed, and we're looking at the same things.
No,
I mean, we talked, pardon me?
We're looking at more.
Well, yes.
Well, for clarification, the commission didn't, and that's why I kind of brought everything up in the way I did tonight, because there was a lot, and the commission didn't choose to deal with everything at once. So what they were tasked with specifically were dealing with the wall and removing the third dock, the duck dock, which that part was done. The commission, I don't think, to my memory, gave any specific tasks on the floating dock, the recently renovated dock, or any other part of the property yet.
No, we did, we tried to address the immediate issues, which were the wall and the duck dock, which we were told would be removed immediately, which was not. Then they had asked for an extension, which we had given them due to extenuating circumstances, which we understand. I guess, and now we're here, the dock's been removed, so one thing's off the list, it's been removed from the water, we don't know if it's been removed from the property. And now we have a whole list of things, and we have to start somewhere. I just don't know where.
Matt, what's your recommendation on this one?
Oh, boy. I don't know, like I said, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot going on. Obviously, I think the biggest issues are the wall and the concrete parking area were built without a permit. We don't know anything about the way they were designed. We don't know if the stormwater functions the way it should. We don't know if that wall is stable enough. We know that it doesn't meet the standards of KWPR and that those were written a certain way to keep from having blowouts happen. So I think obviously we need that engineering information and the feedback from the building department on whether it would be permittable by them or not before we can really go any place with that. I mean, the alternative is you just say you have until X date to remove all of that, which is, I would say, would be among the more firm decisions the commission has made that would certainly, be substantial hardship for the homeowner, but legally speaking, you'd be in your right to do that. I think as long as they can show they're actually making progress on getting that information and getting that filed with the building department, that would be helpful to the commission to have any information on that. And then from the dock standpoint, I think separating them aside, right? The one dock that's been there since 1960 or so was very recently substantially enlarged in size.
On the heels of having the information that was acceptable last year when we discussed this.
Yep.
I have it in my notes that we said what our regs stated as far as acceptable dimensions.
Well, yeah, this was done before that. I mean, this wasn't something that was...
But you're saying that they've now added?
No. It was,
We've not added.
It was built in 1960, roughly. It was expanded between, I want to say...
Expanded or replaced?
2019, essentially replaced with a bigger
Right.
dock in 2019, 2021. So for me, my guidance on that would be that can probably wait until our dock guidance, in which case they're going to have to deal with that. And it may not get permitted. They may have to rebuild it to the size that would be permittable by KWPR.
I would
Because you're
think
not going
so.
to give any, like, okay, you can build it more than three
Right.
times wider than it's supposed to be by our regulations. But personally, I would leave that until we have our guidance set. Chances are the guidance will be set and we'll still have this in front of us for enforcement anyways. I would say the floating dock is, about at least a third to a half bigger than it's supposed to be.
Well, it's a second dock, so it's
never
already
permitted.
100% bigger.
It's a second dock, so it's already
Wow.
not supposed to, based on KWPR, not supposed to have both, and clearly it's a
Falling
problem.
apart, now it has fire holes in it.
Yeah, and
So-
whether it was them
It's time to
or
go.
somebody else shooting a bunch of fireworks off in the pond,
The property.
I think if I were the commission, I want that gone. And I set a deadline on it. And, that may make the commission the fun police because I'm sure tons of people in town have fireworks and they shoot them off. And there may be other people at this pond that do it. There may be everybody who lives in the pond shoots them off for July 4th, for all I know. I wasn't there. But A, they're illegal. B, they're a contaminant. And it's not something that, if the commission knows that it's happening, that they should be okay with. So I think the picture that was sent to us, regardless of who was responsible for that, when the commission has this property in front of them, I think doesn't want that to ever happen again.
True.
So now, will that just mean that it happens at the end of the dock that's there right now? You don't know that. But I would say take what's in front of you right now, and that's how I would deal with that portion of it, is I'd want the float gone. It's something that you might have overlooked and let go longer if everything else was being taken care of.
Yeah, you
But
can
it's
make it a
not.
lesser priority, but
And
right now it's
clearly
not.
a contamination issue, so I would want it removed.
I think there's also a failure of these people to understand the importance of what we're saying and the level of activity that can be done on that property
Yeah.
and the level of other activities that cannot be done.
Right.
That seems to be a big problem. There's no understanding of why we're there and what else you cannot do here.
I tried to make that clear when we first got into enforcement, that, you know, this area historically was sort of forgotten, and an area where, you know, people kind of do things without a lot of town oversight. And just try to get the point across that those days aren't really here anymore. I mean, sure, people get away with things in town without us finding out about it, but,
She probably would have if
you
the
know,
dog didn't catch
it's, these days, more likely than not, if you're doing something that's a bigger project or something that's not allowable, that, you know, we're gonna find out about it and take enforcement action.
And this
on
has been in
site,
front of
it's-
us for over a year.
It's a very difficult site. It's a site where the entirety of it is in jurisdiction. Everything either sits just upslope of or right next to the pond. There's really not a lot of room for beneficial improvements that can help, so like you really have to understand the limits of what you can and can't do legally on the property. For instance, there's no situation where you should be out really doing anything with a backhoe on this property without a permit. So that's where I kind of got at, like, problem solving. If there's nails there, use a magnet. You don't need a permit to use a magnet to pick up nails out of the road. But as soon as you get a backhoe out, we're either gonna get a phone call from somebody or find out after the fact by being on site and seeing disturbance that work was done. So yeah, I think that there is an issue there with that. And I think it's a really hard property to deal with for enforcement because there's a lot there. And I think the commission has been pretty lenient so far. You know, obviously, like, you know, they don't have to take steps like this. The commission could have said right off the bat, get rid of all the unpermitted
Yeah, we
docks,
could've.
get rid of the wall, put everything back the way it was, or
Deadline.
submit a restoration plan. You know, and that would have been
Well, I think the time has come.
incredibly costly.
I think the time has come to do
but-
that. It's been a year. We're in a bigger mess than when we started.
I don't disagree. I don't think that taking that approach that we took to figure it out and give them some time to figure out the wall and get it permitted to see if we can leave it, has bought us anything in the goodwill side of it to come into compliance. I think when we first started this, my comment was that we're not here to enforce and collect fines. We're here to get you into compliance. That's all we want to do, right? But I haven't seen any compliance out of this site, and it's only gotten worse.
It's got worse.
Because whether or not it's, I mean, I get it. It's the end of the street. They got a new neighbor. We're going to hear more about it. But we're certainly not going to ever hear less about it until we get the compliance side of it done. So I think it's at that point.
Do you want to ask for any information on the engineer? I mean, all I know of is that she said they did get an engineer under contract. I don't know
What's the timeline?
what's been done.
I had reached out yesterday, actually, to ask for an update on when they're coming to do the site visit and everything. I have not heard back yet, so Matt, I'll reach out to you as soon as I hear from them.
Okay.
Do you guys want to come up with 3 things we want fixed and move in a positive manner?
I have a couple things.
Or, Megan, please.
I would suggest removing the large floating dock immediately that was burned and damaged in the pond by our next meeting, which is 2 weeks.
Removed from site.
Removed from site.
Yeah,
completely.
not just up on the shore.
Yes. Thank you, Brian.
By what
By our
date?
next meeting, 2 weeks. I am also concerned, we didn't really touch on it, on the yard waste that's on the slope in their pictures. There's a Christmas tree, there's something else. Might not be easy, but I would like those removed before they end up in the pond.
Right, and just to clarify on that, I didn't even bring that
Right.
up, but I think did have it in the staff report that the abutter reached out about landscapers that are doing work at the edge of the pond.
Well, the
and
pictures
then
show Christmas
dumping-
tree or large.
Dumping vegetation.
Right.
You know, down the slope over by the sheds, which I think is on the DeRico property on the pond side.
Do you think that's something we put them on notification for and explain to them why, right? We don't want runoff that's associated with decomposing anything going straight in. The more we dump there, the more likely it's going to happen, right?
Right.
Or
Well, the property owner
they
should
gotta
let them
clean
know
it
that
up,
they're
but
not
then
dump stuff on their
they need to
property.
know that they're not.
But they
Who
can't
needs to
do-
know? The landscapers?
People need to know that they're not allowed to do that anymore. We need to
Well, the
tell them
property owner
before we
knows they
define.
shouldn't be dumping their landscaping scraps on the side of the pond.
That's
Landscape-
true.
Like, so the property, it should be the responsibility of the property owner to make sure their landscapers aren't damaging their property more, not our responsibility to make sure the landscapers are doing their job correctly.
I'm not saying that it's our responsibility. I'm saying are we thinking that, what's the action? Clean it up?
I would like
and
just the
notify
large,
them that
no,
it's not
just the large
acceptable?
debris and make sure whoever they hire do the job correctly.
I'm thinking in the future, if we don't notify them, we can't fine them when they do it wrong.
I guess.
So let's just build in the notification as well with the clean it up now statement.
Sure.
What else?
Is there a dumpster on site?
There is. It's residential trash pickup.
Is it covered?
It is covered.
It is covered. It does have the flap stuck over the top.
My other suggestion would be some type of fine for the fireworks and the damage done, but I don't know how that works into our enforcement guidelines or,
Are we thinking we want to fine for the contaminants for that?
for the dock fire,
Is that where we want to go with it?
yes.
Do you want to wait on KPD's report on it, or?
I think there's
It's
two
their
different
dock, correct?
issues.
It is their
There's
dock.
pictures of it there. I think we can move forward with, I don't need to know who lit it off. We know whose dock it is. We know where the contaminant sources came, and there's
Yes.
pictures of it there with a floating barrel.
We're not finding them because they used illegal fireworks. We're finding them because they contaminated the
pond.
the pond.
So,
It's not a question of whether or not it was illegal activity.
It was the damage, it was the consequences of those actions that have damaged what we're here to protect. My suggestion would be a one-time $300 fine.
Okay.
And if it was a group, then they can pay it all together as a group.
Is 300 the max, or is it 250 the max?
$300 a day.
Just one time.
all right, so I have
Remove the
remove the
float.
large dock,
Yep.
clean up the dumping and notify, and then fine for the
Mhm.
the firework episode.
I would just like to clarify that that dog is to be removed from property by our next meeting, which is July 23rd.
What about the debris removal from the pond slope? Is that the
That can
same
be
time
July-
frame?
Yep, yep. Again, that's just
That's
me. You
organic
guys
debris,
can
right?
add or
No, that's a
alter
good beginning.
or-
It's a good beginning. My only concern is that 2 weeks is not a long time to get the dock pulled out.
Oh, well.
It's,
I'm okay with, oh well, but I'm just saying that it's not a
Mhm.
lot. So
it took them a year to remove the duck dock, so 2 weeks
Yeah.
to me is perfectly.
what I'm saying is that if we say a month, and then we say we're fining on 30 days, every day if it's not removed, that gets us to where we want to be. I'm open either way, but that's all I'm saying. We can take it
I would
from
ask
reasonable.
that it
Can I
is removed.
opine?
I'm
Please.
sorry?
I asked if I could opine.
He wants to provide an opinion.
Oh,
Just-
sure.
Ask if I can talk. I think what Jim said is a better plan of action, because for something like this, I have to put together an enforcement order, and I have to get the constable to deliver the enforcement order, and then I have to have given them a timeline with if you don't do it by this date,
Okay,
you
so the
get fined per
paperwork's going
day.
to take up some of the time.
Exactly. So if we're talking 2 weeks, by the time they get the paperwork, it might be a week down, especially us being on a 4-day work week now. So I would say a month would be better, which would put you out to the August 13th meeting.
All right, so 13. And then, if you guys don't want to do it, but I think we want to put it on paper, there's no digging on site.
Yes.
You're within, there's no excavation, there's no site improvements, there's no anything
No.
on this site that doesn't need to be permitted.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it's an
Sorry.
admin review, and Matt says that you're good to go, but there has to be that kind of, you need to check moving forward before you disturb the ground. I don't care what it is.
Including engine repair.
Any type of repair. Matt, can you give me the date for a month out? I'm sorry.
August 13th is the next meeting a month out.
Okay, so removal of the large floating dock from property by August 13th. Are we
Removal of
going to?
debris.
I'm sorry?
So, removal of the debris.
As well, yeah.
With fine starting.
I was gonna say, are we adding fine starting if it is not done by?
Yes. Yeah, and I would take it
Okay.
as 4 action items that you have the
Yep.
potential to issue 4 fines separately because it's each one's for a different action. So you're issuing, Matt, I expect separate enforcement orders for these 4 different numbers. Is that,
I don't have to issue 4 different enforcement orders. It will outline the 4 tasks and the task. So, I'm sorry, we have removal of the large floating dock, we have removal of the vegetation downslope, and we have,
with
on
notification about
notice
dumping?
with
Yep.
no dumping and
no
notification
site work.
of no
Cease and
digging or
desist
site
and-
modifications without a permit, otherwise daily fines of 3, you wouldn't do daily fines for digging, you would do, a fine would be issued.
Oh, a fine
and
for the digging
And a
would be
further
one, but
enforcement
if
order would be
if
issued.
the dock doesn't come out.
Dock would be
that's a-
daily
that's a daily
fines,
fine.
the vegetation would be daily fines. Any future cutting of vegetation or dumping of vegetation or site work without a permit would be an immediate $300 fine and the issuance of an enforcement order
Yep.
for
As what,
site
did you put the
restoration.
one-time $300 fine?
Correct.
For the contamination, right?
Contamination.
fireworks.
Yeah.
I don't think we got it all, but I think we made a dent.
Good
Is
beginning.
everybody
Good beginning.
confident with what we did?
Yes.
Okay, can we have a motion for that? To
So I'll
issue?
move that we have Matt issue the enforcement order to cover, do you want me to say them again?
I think you
As
wrote them
stated.
down.
As stated, I would
As
say as
stated.
stated,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
clear, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
May I amend?
Oh, please.
I would also like to hear within that 30-day time from their engineer. Okay, so please put that on there. And again.
With an update?
With the fine at day 31, if we don't have something concrete on movement on the retaining wall, which is why we all came to know this place in the first place.
Update on letterhead from engineer by August 13th.
Yep,
Yes.
yep. So, do you accept the amendment?
I do.
Okay, all right, so we have an updated amendment, do we have a second? Second. All right, Brian has a second, we'll take a voice vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Brian? Yes. Megan?
Yes.
Jim's a yes, okay. So you have a unanimous one.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll.
Awesome. Can I just ask you one super quick question before we break?
Yeah, just to be clear, Matt will be in touch with you, but you're, you may ask.
As far as landscaping work goes, am I okay to have landscapers here, just not putting the leaves and stuff in the woods? They have to take it off-site or put it in my dumpster?
Do we want a landscaping plan?
That's, I
It's
mean,
really, like, what I had was them cleaning up like the weeds between the brick patio and stuff like that kind of grow up in the middle and spreading some mulch for me. I didn't have any plantings going in or like nothing touching the water line, anything like that.
They wouldn't be using any herbicides to clean between those bricks, would they?
No, they were scraping, so they just used like a shovel to scrape, in between the pavers.
Can't small amounts of debris like that, leaf litter and such, can't that go just into the woods? Just spread it into the woods?
Because you don't know
Well,
what's in
that's
it.
what was done, and that's what
No.
seems to be a problem. So
Well,
Well,
I,
that's not a small
No.
amount, at
Ms.
least.
Carroll,
yeah.
what we were most concerned with is the wrong woods, right? Because you have woods up against the water
Yeah.
and you have woods on the
You don't know what
street
you're
side,
putting
so.
on it. Why would you want to put it in the woods?
I don't want anything going in the woods.
just as mulch.
It's problematic, but.
I mean, if I invite
Matt,
them
are
to
you
come back,
comfortable
should I have them put
taking
everything in the
phone calls
dumpster?
To bring them into compliance about what they can and can't do?
Yeah, I mean, typically, when you have a landscaped area, you're allowed to maintain your landscaped area without a permit when you're in jurisdiction. If you had to do any major disruption, like planting, like bigger plantings, if you were pocket planting one little perennial, you're not gonna get a permit. But if you're planting a tree, or you're digging up a tree, you're digging up
taking
multiple
down a
plants
tree
or a whole
or-
bed, those types of things need a permit.
Applying
Like
pesticides.
so many other issues, it's a tricky property because I don't know that anything was ever permitted here. So it is tricky to I don't know, I would say personally, I wouldn't have any issue with allowing a landscaper to maintain the developed portions of the property. It's just, I mean, what I usually tell people you know, we'll go on site visits where somebody's dumping their, usually grass clippings up against the wetlands, and they'll just say, on this property, you can't do that, you have to get it out of here.
I
You
think
know,
all of this has to be
landscapers have
removed.
remove it.
All
Okay.
landscaping debris needs to be removed from site. Most
And-
landscapers will do
and
that
just,
for you.
Ms. Carroll, you can take all of organic debris to the dump, and it becomes
Sure.
compost.
Yeah, yeah.
So
True.
we have a very good dump facility, a transfer station facility, where they empty it and they take it and they chip stuff for us. So there's a resource, and it's really not that far. So, I mean,
Sure.
you know, don't think that there's not easy options for some of this stuff. And the
no, I
landscapers
wasn't
can
thinking
take
that at all.
it
I
with them too, so, okay?
Just wanted to make sure it wasn't a problem that they were here, so.
Right. What I'll say is Matt's an excellent resource and he's very approachable. So if you have a question, he will not steer you in the wrong direction, and it's better to ask than to do and get in trouble again.
Sure.
All we want is compliance here, compliance with what we're obligated to enforce, so.
Sure.
Okay.
Understood.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, that was the last of the enforcements.
Just not continuing on, but just I want to make sure that I have written down exactly what was said. I'm sure Julianne is probably doing a better job of tracking it than I am. I have removal of the large floating dock by August 13th or issuance of $300 daily fines, removal of the dumped vegetation by August 13th or $300 daily fines, on notice that there's no further dumping of vegetation within jurisdiction, or a $300 fine and potential enforcement order will be issued. On notice that there's no further site work or digging without a permit in jurisdiction, or $300 fine will be issued and potentially an enforcement order. Update on letterhead from an engineer to be received by August 13th, or $300 fines per day will be issued until it's received, and issuing a $300 fine for firework contamination of small pond.
Yeah.
Did we add Dot's request about working within the 100-foot buffer to wetlands on
Any
cars and
machines
boats?
or-
Did we discuss that?
It wasn't voted on, and I would have, I guess, questions on that
Okay.
about legality. I could ask
Right.
counsel for the future.
Okay, why don't you just ask, you know, just because it is one of those things where that is definitely activity that they should not be doing, because there's the potential to become a contaminant release, right? Okay, so it wasn't in, and we're not gonna put it in until we hear. Okay. Are you good on that, Matt? Okay. So we'll move to meeting minutes. We have the meeting minutes from March 26, 2025. I was not here, so I must abstain. Has everybody had time to review? And if so, do we have a motion?
Yep, I motion to accept the minutes of March 26th.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a second by Megan. We'll take a voice call. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jim's abstained, I wasn't present, and that's the meeting minutes. Carrie? Updates, it looks like we have none.
I'll give you a quick one.
Okay.
Blackwater Memorial Forest, since I get constant questions from the public about this, because this is taking forever. But the restoration work has been done since the spring. They have now done, I would say, 99% of the work reestablishing the trail around the former bog. They are coming back likely next week to finalize the dirt that's adjacent to the trail and hydroseed it with the native mix with a cover crop. Then they will be coming back in the fall to hydroseed again, because this is a terrible time of year to be trying to get stuff to grow, but we need some stabilization there. And the docks are being built,
Bridges?
docks.
Ducks.
The bridges are being built as we speak by John Bonomi, Kingston local guy. The supports, the spans are in place, and he is working from his shop on a lot of the components and then bringing them to the site and assembling there. They should look pretty good. They'll be functional. The idea was to get as close to ADA compliance as we could with this loop trail around the old bog. Unfortunately, through some marvel of engineering, the loop trail was not connected to the parking lot.
What?
So that's fantastic. So,
We have options.
so I have the contractor now
Right.
quoting me on what it would take to do the stub to the parking lot. More than likely, in order to really call it somewhat accessible, we would need to establish a stone dust or hard pack or something parking space attached to that trail, because we just did the 3/4 inch crushed stone across the whole thing, which is real loose and not good for that. So I just wanted, hopefully, that we can just get it connected to the parking area and we could do the parking space later.
That's gonna be tough, I mean, that's tough to get it inside there, just with everything there, because we got the fence, we got everything, now we're gonna have to open it up and re-fence.
No, you won't have to re-fence anything. It would be
How are we
right,
keeping people out?
right off.
Right, well, my concern would be how you keeping larger vehicles from not going through that ADA space,
Larger vehicles can't fit through an ADA space.
ATVs, dirt bikes.
No, anything, literally, like, we put the fencing up there to keep
4x4s.
people from going back there still. So if we open it back up, we can talk,
You'd
I'll
have to
figure
go,
it out.
you'd have to go see it on site,
Right.
because we have, obviously there were bollards there that were moved, we're gonna need something there. But you wanna maintain enough access through there to be ADA compliant. And you can do that in a way that you're not getting, you can't keep a dirt bike out.
Right.
Right.
You can't keep even, you probably can keep most ATVs out with ADA compliant passage in. But we want to, the site's never, no, I don't want to say never. The site's not going to be
like that.
ADA compliant now. We didn't have enough money to do that, but we got it, I think, very close. And I think even with the bridges, it's going to be a flat, walkable route, sort of like Dot asked for a while ago. I think if we can get at least the parking area, or portion of the parking area a little more stable, that might take a couple of years to implement, but the parking area isn't so bad. But we will have a nice flat path around the bog.
So when do you project it being available for foot traffic?
It should be within a couple of weeks. Every part of the process has just taken a little bit longer, but I expect the bridges are gonna be done within the next couple of weeks, and the seating should be done within the next couple of weeks. And then what I'm likely to do is schedule some public site walks. I say walks plural, because this property is popular enough that I'm sure we're gonna have tons of
Right.
people who wanna go hear about the project and see it, early on. So, it's coming.
Looks really good, man, you did a good job.
It does look nice.
All right, let's see, you guys worked through action item for 2 Wildwood Circle, the RDA? Or is that,
Yeah, we did that.
okay,
And we did action items are done.
Yep.
Everything's done.
We're good.
okay.
I'll make a motion.
Next meeting is, did we already do that?
Nope.
Let me do that. Closing remarks. The next meeting will be held on July 23rd, 2025, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 9:23. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion and second, we'll take a voice. Marilyn?
Yes.
Dot?
Yes.
Brian? Yes. Megan?
Yes.
Jim? Yes. Okay. Motion's carries.